You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 22nd part of What If Deku Helps His Best Friend Peter Parker. Smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Back in the lab, Peter sighed with a grin as he inspected his tattered urban suit. The support department was rather quiet this Saturday. Although given the notices he saw of support midterms around the lab and outside of the department here in UA, everyone present must have been decompressing after essentially their own super test. Well, everyone except for one. How did you do on the evaluations, May? He asked, looking back at the pink-haired girl as she hovered over a workbench. He recognized his iron spider module on it, resting beside some tools. I did good, May said with not as much enthusiasm as he expected. Made some good armor that a third year requested and showed it off. Got a passing grade. Awesome to hear. Peter got up from the repair bench and walked over to another table where the Stark suit was laid out. Did you go over my suit while I was gone? May finally turned, smiling brightly. Yeah, I did. Fixed up some of the worn bits. With Karen's help anyway. May walked over, standing by Peter's side. I needed something to do while you were busy at the license exam, Karen said through the lab. Awesome to hear. Thanks, you guys, Peter said with a light smile as he inspected the Stark suit. The spots of wear and tear had been fixed up with minor and very similar patches to the material used in the suit. To the untrained eye, it would look as good as new. To the trained eye, however, this will keep you safe, right? May asked, turning towards him as Peter's hand skimmed down his suit. More or less, it's better armored than the urban suit I made. But it was by design to help enhance my spider sense. Peter shrugged. Never figured it would backfire on me like that though. Guess I gotta learn how to improve with stronger and more durable suits. Backfired how? I saw you put in a lot of time in that black suit, May asked, her telescopic eyes already scanning every fiber of the costume. Oh, I got nailed really bad by Gang Orca during the provisional exam. Peter laughed a bit at the somewhat painful memory. Like, point-blank sonar blast while wearing a suit that enhances your senses. Recipe for disaster. Rather than simply laugh with him, May was glaring at him now, an odd look on her face. How badly were you hurt? Peter turned his head towards her, surprised and a little worried by how serious she looked. It was an exam, May. I am and will be okay. He smiled, patting her on the shoulder. I've been through worse. As those words left his mouth, May froze and her eyes suddenly went blank. Been through worse. In a flash, the image of a bloodied, exhausted, and wounded Peter appeared before her eyes, the smell of burnt servers, and blood on her hands there and gone in a blink. She felt her stomach do a backflip and she gulped to steady herself, gritting her teeth. If you were to wear that iron spider baby again, would you not get hurt? She asked, looking down. Peter was looking up at the diagnostics of the Stark suit, still oblivious to May's shift in attitude. Yep, but I don't think any of the tech we have here can fix it. I've tried, trust me, Peter mused. We need the super accurate microscopic stuff on Island's labs to make repairs to the nanotech module, the connector to the arc reactor, and fixing up the chassis supporting it. May looked back at the box containing the module. Nothing here in the support labs of UA could construct something that's small and precise to make the necessary repairs. Nothing here could do it. May looked back at him, seeing the grinning face of his. Wanna help? I'm sure you've got some good babies in mind I can use. She had to ensure that his smile would never go away, no matter what. The next day, so Jintoki's ramen is the place to go, Peter mused, walking alongside his classmates. Totally, best ramen in this district, Kirishima said as he led the way. I remember coming by here with my folks too. My parents couldn't stop raving about the place. Jiru replied. Maybe because the food's that good, Ochako said as she walked with the group. It was himself, Kirishima, Momo, Ochako, Kaminari, Mina, and Jiru. Shoto was sadly busy, as was Izuku. It has a lot of good reviews, Momo mused as she looked at her phone. Oh, I see some foreign language reviews on here too. Must be good with tourists then. We've hit the jackpot, Mina cheered. Now, I hope you've brushed up on your chopstick acumen, Peter-san, Momo said, looking his way with a small wry grin. Peter blinked. What? Yeah, I mean, you've been living here for what, 1.5 years and you still don't have chopstick technique down, Jiru said with a smirk. Peter blushed and looked to the side. Have I really been doing it wrong? He thought he has been doing it right. Then again, he never needed to use chopsticks back home in Chinatown. They always had plastic cutlery. You all gotta learn sometime. Kaminari draped an arm over Peter's shoulders as he looked over, the blond boy looking smug. I can teach you all the ropes, he said with a smirk, hands positioned as if he was holding chopsticks. As if you can, charge dolt. Jiru replied with a roll of the eye. Oh come on, I can do it. Chopsticks are easy enough. I'm sure you can. But can you explain it to our vice rep? Jiru inquired. I wish I could, but I just followed my parents and how they did it, Hiroshima said with his hands folded behind his back as they walked on the sidewalk together. Oh, how about you teach him yeah, Momo? Mina asked, smirking somewhat deviously as her eyes darted between the two, while Momo looked to be considering it. Come on, let me be the one to school Parker for once. Kaminari whined. You'd just fumble the bag. Jiru smirked at him. Achako turned suddenly towards Momo. Thank you for covering the bill too. I was nervous about having to pay my fee. Don't worry about it. It's my treat, Momo said with a beaming smile as Peter chuckled a bit, taking in the sight around them. Downtown Musutafu, complete with the shops, restaurants, and clubs for a night out. At the heart of the downtown area was, I remember, Peter murmured as he stopped walking, looking across the street. Situated between several roads was a large park, based around a hill with various trees for people to relax by. At the peak of the hill was a specific tree. He went across the street, no cars coming down it. Yo, Parker, Kaminari called out. Where you going? Peter looked back, seeing them all look back his way. Just gotta make a light detour. Jintoki's right. Peter showed off his phone. I'll meet you in line, he said as he began to trot up the hill. Some people were sitting down at various benches on the pathways embedded on the hill, but he kept on trotting up. Yes, this tree. He recognized it, where he made his memorial so long ago. He had stopped visiting when he began attending UA. At last, he made it to the top. Standing before the tree as he looked out, he could see the hills of Musutafu and in the distance the Tokyo skyline. The words he had carved in English had begun to fade lately, but they were still there. Uncle B, Mr. S, Aunt M Ned, MJ, Peter Q Drax, Mantis, Dr. S, never forget, love you always. Hey everyone. Peter spoke lightly in English, hands in his pockets. Been a while. Sorry for not coming by to visit lately. Been going to school. Hero school if you can believe it. He smiled softly, and things have been going okay, just some high school stuff. I've made some great friends. Ned, MJ, I bet you'd like them. There's this one girl in class that kinda reminds me of you, MJ, but she is a bit more, I wanna say, vulnerable at times. She can be flustered in some spots where you would have made some tactful quip, and she has like, super strong hearing thanks to her earlobes too. And Ned, he laughed, cringing a bit. Star Wars is but a distant memory, man, but there is Galactic Legends, which may be the future version of it. I plan to start watching tonight or so. And if there's anything good, I'm getting the best Star Destroyer or Death Star equivalent they have. He gave a thumbs up. I'll make one for you, buddy. He took a deep breath, eyes settling on the top names. Aunt May, you'd get along with you. She's been awesome. Peter had his hand on the tree. You could definitely give her some pointers on how to cook and clean up an apartment though. She also wants to spoil me a lot lately. Guess being a hero beats doing community service work every day of the week. Huh. He mused aloud. Well, there's worse jobs, like being a beat photographer or soup kitchen guy. Not like they're not important and all. But she wants to do right by me and Peter licked his lips. Sometimes I make her worry and I wish I couldn't, you know. I dunno, it's complicated, I guess. Peter's eyes drifted up towards the top names. I have been taking steps to become better than you, Mr. Stark. And using my powers to make a difference and being responsible for it too, Uncle Ben. He remembered back to when he got here. His experiences, his failures. Do you think that I am becoming better? He paused, hands on his hips. He looked up at the tree branches, seeing the stars in the sky above and taking a deep breath, unsure of how he could finish that sentence. I hope I am, he said, resolving at that for now. You don't seem to be alone, Peter. Karen spoke in his ear. He was about to mention Mr. Stark to Karen as he turned around, and standing about 10 yards away were Kirishima and Momo. The former perked up, looking awkward at having interrupted a private moment. Oh, hey Ace. Oh, hey. Peter smiled lightly. I take it that Jiru and the others are in line. Yes, they were going to get checked in. I am footing the bill after all, Momo replied. I was curious to see what made you want to come up this hill. Same here. First I thought you were trying to get a good view, but you're Ace. You can get any view you want, so. Hiroshima craned his head lightly, and he was able to see the carving on the tree. You are talking to a tree. What for? Peter licked his lips, taking a deep breath. Well, guess that's out of the bag now as he looked back at his friends. Well, just talking to some, Peter murmured. Friends long gone. Long gone. What do you mean by? Kirishima paused, Momo being silent as she observed as Peter looked to the side. Never forget, love you always, Momo reiterated in Japanese. Kirishima looked back and forth, the redhead blinking. So, as in, she paused, not finishing it, looking to the side. Then it clicked for the brawler. Oh I'm sorry about that, Ace. I didn't know you were paying your respects, Kirishima uttered as Peter shook his head. It's fine. I just wanted to catch up, that's all. Peter shrugged. What with going to UA and everything? Just lost track of time. School can do that. Momo mused, not sure what to say. I notice an aunt and an uncle on their Ace, or are they gone too? Kirishima inquired, Peter looking up at him. Yeah, there's nothing left for me to go back home to in the States, he admitted, seeing little point in lying more than he already was. Nothing left? Use a family friend. So, once I get my legitimate hero license and graduate UA, I plan to become a hero here in Japan full-time, even though you have US citizenship. Momo tilted her head, and Peter took a deep breath. Yep, just rough memories back home is all. He gave a big smile, ear to ear as best he could, even if it felt awkward. Not like he could go back to the States even if he wanted to. Well, if you say you're fine, Ace. Kirishima walked up to him before laying a hand on his shoulder. If there's anything you need to say though, you can count on me, okay? He had a thumb directed at his own chest. What friend would I be if I didn't hear you out, huh? He said with a big sharp-toothed grin. Yes, Peter-san, if you need anything at all, we can help, Momo said, nodding lightly. Thanks, you guys. Peter nodded. Well, let's get in line. I'm sure Mina and Kyoka are waiting on us. Of course, Momo said as they turned around and began to walk down the hill. Sorry I couldn't let you speak to Mr. Stark, Karen. He sent a message to his own cell number and got an immediate response. It's alright. We can always come again later. He walked alongside the red-headed brawler and obsidian-haired beauty as they managed to make it to the bottom as Momo began to talk about nutritional facts. Yeah, he sent as he heard loud music as they passed by a loud club of sorts. Various sorts of characters hanging outside of it wearing dark tight clothing, spiky collars, and dark makeup. Goodness, what is that abhorrent music? Momo murmured, hands over her ears as Peter picked up on it. Yep, that was death metal. Man, that's some screaming going on in there, Kirishima mused, before grinning. I bet whoever is yelling must be one manly guy. Peter chuckled. Yeah, that was some throat-killing roaring over the guitar and drums inside as they made their way around the crowd of joyous metal fans. He even spotted someone covered in spikes as well. Makeup or a legitimate quirk. He didn't know, but hey, they're living their best life. Parker-san, called out a voice, making Peter perk up as they made their way around the crowd and onto the main sidewalk. Hey, did someone call out for you? Kirishima asked. Down here. Wait, that sounded familiar. Peter looked down, and just below his waist standing up was a small lady with a unique tail and ears, with a lot of black and white makeup on her face in intricate patterns, and collars and black clothes with grim reapers holding guitars, and she even had skull shoulder pads. But he knew that tail. Nakiri-san. Peter smiled. It's been a while, he said, kneeling down a bit. You know her, Peter-san? Momo inquired. Oh, you're that creaty girl that worked alongside Yorai Musha, Nakiri Shizune said with a beaming smile. Sorry that our first introduction is like this. Her voice sounded a bit raw too. Was she screaming her heart out in there? I didn't expect you to be around here, Parker-san. Out with friends? Yeah, was gonna try out some ramen at Jintoki's. Peter gestured behind him. You here for a metal band meetup? Yep, gotta see how the newbies are doing. Shizune giggled a bit. I'm glad to see you're doing well. Weren't you at Island during that fiasco or something? I was, yeah. I take it that was mentioned in the news a bit. Peter shrugged. A little, although you should have seen Mirko-san when she found out, Shizune said, and Peter felt pinpricks in his gut at the mention of the name. I see. Peter mused, eyes to the side. How's Mirko been doing? Mirko-san's just being Mirko-san, doing her cross-country patrols. She came back a few days ago on call for the HPSC in case they were going to ask her to take part in the provisional license exam too. She wasn't contacted, so she was a bit miffed at them for wasting her time. Shizune shrugged. But she's resting for a bit now, going around Endo and Tokyo as a whole. Her smile softened. I'm glad to see you're having fun with your friends, Parker-san. High school life is all about making best friends. There were unspoken words in there as she looked to the side. Jiru is saying there at the front and it's time to head in, Momo commented, Peter turning to see her glance at her phone. Oh, and sorry to have kept ya. I only went outside for some fresh air, Shizune said with a smile as she waved them goodbye. The next day, Peter perked up, looking up from his spot after he finished some stretching exercises with a little help from Ishido. Most of Class 1A was out in the training field or the battle centers to hone their quirks for the Monday afternoon. It was Izuku, standing in his UA gym uniform. "What's up, Midori?" he asked, standing straight up as he felt a soft pop in his back. "Ooh, needed that. Bothered me this morning." He smiled towards Mina and gave a thumbs up. "Thanks, anytime dude." She beamed at him with a toothy smile. "Okay, let's go to a battle center you guys. I'm all warmed up." "Same here, although I'll have to get my web shooters." "Which center are you going to?" "Theta. See you there." Mina and the others began going their separate ways as Peter turned towards the green-haired boy. He looked a little serious. "So, what's up?" Peter asked. "Peter-san." Izuku took a big gulp and then bowed deeply. "Can you please fight me? You don't have to yell, dude." Peter laughed lightly, or bow that deeply. Izuku immediately raised his head, blushing at his own enthusiasm. Izuku shook his head. "Sorry, but..." When he looked at Peter, the fierceness of his expression took the American aback a bit. "I mean that I want you to fight me, Peter-san. A serious fight from you." Peter blinked. "I guess sure. Though what brought this on?" Peter walked towards Izuku, and the boy took it as a cue and walked beside him. They were likely going for the open gym by the looks of it as they climbed the steps from the training field. Izuku was silent for a time, seemingly mulling over his answer. They got to the door, and inside they saw a Choco doing parkour atop of raised cement spires. "Hey Cementos-sensei," Peter called out, waving towards the cement man. The man turned, offering a bright big smile. "Ah, Parker, Midoriya. Come to use the gym, I see." "Yeah, me and Midori here just gonna spar for a bit." Peter gestured towards the green-haired boy as the cement hero nodded. "Do as you wish," he gestured, walking around the gym with his hands around his back while humming to himself. When they reached the open area of the gym, Izuku looked at him, seemingly ready to answer his previous question. "Do you remember back then, when we started at UA, and you helped me, training with me on the beach before the sports festival?" Izuku then smiled wryly at the memories. "I've gotten stronger and stronger since then. That's why I want to measure myself, to see how far I've come. That's why I want to fight you." He raised his fist at him. "You're one of the strongest kids here, Peter, and I need to know where I stand next to you, and grow stronger still." Peter blinked. "Gosh, put me on the spot here." He rubbed the back of his head, thinking about what he was asking for. The chance to cut loose. Peter looked at Izuku, really looked at him. He had gotten stronger, much stronger, and if his theory about his connection to All Might was true, then Midoriya was gonna keep getting stronger. So it made sense that he wanted to push himself, test himself. Peter could do that. It had been a while since he'd given it his aloe, not since his spars against Mirko. He nodded. "All right, Midori." He grinned, legs spreading out, hands clenched into fists, as he made himself ready. "You asked for this, buddy." Izuku's smile was one of pure anticipation. When the fight started, it started quick. Charging at one another, Peter delivered a haymaker, and Izuku a jab as Peter dodged, the glowing green-haired boy using his hand to brush away the blow. They landed on the ground, exchanging rapid-fire blows and quick hit-and-run attacks. They darted in and out, weaving and ducking through each other's strikes as Peter began to up the speed and power of his attacks. One slipped through, sending Izuku stumbling across the floor before he rolled back to his feet, hand favoring his side before he charged back once more. As Peter felt the impact of Izuku's blows against his hands as he either misdirected or blocked, he could tell that Izuku was beginning to ramp up as well. Distantly, he became aware of the other one, a student stopping their exercises, watching the exchange from their various vantage points. His awareness of them dimmed and vanished as he was forced to use his spider sense more and more as his opponent's speed kept increasing. Izuku's fists crackled with green lightning, bolts of static leaping off of his knuckles to dance across Peter's flesh with tingles that made the thin hairs of his neck stand on end. His spider senses tingled, the intensity increasing in frequency from Midoriya's kicks and fists, until his very presence was a living, moving lightning rod of crackling danger. His senses were screaming at him to get the hell out of the way, not that he wanted to. The punches and kicks that once could be blocked started leaving his forearms and legs numb where he met the boy blow for blow. Dodges that had been so clean were now hasty things or narrow nicks. Midoriya's quirk seemed to roar like a furnace inside him, the bellows finally letting loose to build up fire and heat. Peter didn't even notice the smile spreading across his face as he kept his pace. Izuku felt the ache in his arms as he and Peter separated. The world became a blur around them. Izuku's face contorted throughout the fight as Peter's counter-punches, kicks and shoves sent him sprawling, only for him to recover and get back on the offensive. Anticipation was there, but so was the growing competitive frustration. He was pushing as hard as he could while not breaking anything, and yet, GNNNGH, 19%. Izuku yelled, his body glowing hotter and brighter as Peter's eyes widened. Izuku rocketed forward, the world becoming an indistinct surge of white at the edges of his vision as he came at Peter with a flying kick. He had the satisfaction of seeing Peter's surprise before that kick cracked into the American's forearms, sending him skidding back on his heels. The exchange this time sent claps of sound and air pressure around them, kicking up dust and tearing across the arena grounds. He wasn't done yet. He could see Peter's smile. A part of him felt a little pleased, but the other part of him, growing all the more, felt frustrated. Was he still so far behind him? The world kept calling Peter the next All Might. Izuku had sworn an oath to that man to be better than him in that park, and he had been getting better. How then? How could he become the greatest hero when he can't even surpass his classmate? More. I need. Blocking a roundhouse kick from Peter as he brushed it aside, only for his strike to miss as Peter twisted his body, and Izuku felt pain in his head from the dropkick that knocked him to his knees. Peter threw out both hands, the impact sending Izuku rolling across the ground as he got back up. I'm not done yet, Izuku screamed, his body aglow as lightning arced from his limbs. Izuku was on his opponent, leaping at him as the ground cracked under the force of his charge. He had the satisfaction of seeing the white of Peter's eyes before the American raised his arms in a hasty block. The blow punched through, raw power slamming into Peter's ribs, sending him tumbling before he recovered. The sneakers on his feet pushed for traction as the American rushed to meet his next charge. Push past the limits, surpass them, surpass all might. Another blow landed, pushing Peter even further back. Surpass him, go, plus ultra. Izuku smiled, and he felt the surge of power within him grow under his control. 20%. He landed behind Peter as the boy turned back in surprise as Izuku came back for the follow-through. Toothy grin bared in competitive fire, and adrenaline as he saw Peter take back steps from his punch. And the air gust that came from it blinded the American as he backed off, leaping towards the rattling windows. He was on the back foot. Izuku kept up the momentum, charging after him as he wound his arm back, the other arm used to aim as he saw his reflection against the giant set of glass windows. And in his reflection, he saw 8 shadows with glowing eyes behind him. And then it came and erupted from his limbs. Darkness surged forth as Peter's mouth opened and his eyes widened in surprise, shock, and fear. Izuku couldn't hear him, the wind and the crackle of one for all consuming his hearing. The darkness erupted, and Izuku screamed. Cementos, Shouta yelled as he burst into the gym, Yagi panting at his side as the cement man had his hands on the ground, stone and earth surging to contain the writhing darkness. Uraraka was near the wall holding her arm as she looked at the darkness in horror. It's from Midoriya. It came when they were sparring. The man shouted, concentrating. With Parker, they're in there. Uraraka wailed. Oh no, Yagi gasped, and Shouta's erasure blazed on as he gazed at the black sun as he ran towards it and heard screams. The black writhing mass that was as large as a 3-story house began to evaporate. Shouta opened his eyes as far as they could go, the red gleam cutting through the tendrils of black. The black mass disappeared, letting 2 figures fall to the ground. Midoriya hit his knees, panting, while the other dropped from the wall. Shouta ran, sliding and catching Parker in his arms. Parker, you alright? The teacher shouted, his heart racing as he held the boy, hand cradling his head and his back. He winced, and Shouta felt wetness on the back of his head and he turned, seeing a red stain along the wall above the glass ceiling, rays of light pouring in thanks to the explosion of those black tendrils. Parker groaned, eyes looking up at him in dazed confusion as he blinked and groaned. Anyone get the number of that bus? Ida, get Parker to the infirmary and recovery girl. Have him checked. The taller boy immediately saluted and took the American in his arms. Right, sensei. Parker, you're going to be fine. Ida held him up. Everyone's on break. Get some water, rest, Shouta said before the rest of the students dispersed, talking amongst themselves. Yaoyorozu looked pale in particular with her hand over her mouth, but Kirishima was by her side, he too looking stunned. Bakugou was still staring at Midoriya, face unreadable. Bakugou, Shouta said again, and the blonde nodded. Yeah, I hear ya. He turned, walking off. Shouta turned, seeing Yaoyorozu standing beside Parker and Ida, Kirishima right by her side and making small talk with them, albeit in hurried and concerned tones. Todoroki and Mizo were present as well, but both of them were silent. Shouta turned towards Cementos, who had an arm around Uraraka. "Uraraka, are you alright?" he asked, walking up to the brunette. "What happened?" "My arm got caught by one of those black tentacle things that came out of Deku. Shouta looked up at Cementos as he checked on her arm, pressing a hand on the bruise already forming. It was hot to the touch. "Might be broken," he muttered. "You're probably still on an endorphin high and adrenaline." The girl looked at her arm, eyes widening at the sight of it, but she nodded, her lips tucked in as Shouta turned towards his colleague. The two were sparring fine. It was getting a little intense, but nothing truly dangerous for either of their strength levels, Cementos replied. "Almost looked like they were having fun. Then when my head was turned I heard them screaming." The cement man sighed, likely blaming himself for such a slip-up. Shouta took a deep breath, nodding. "Okay, can you escort Uraraka to Recovery Girl's office?" "Of course. Let's go, young lady," the man said with all the kindness of a supportive and loving uncle, his big wide hand on her shoulder. The black-haired man took a deep breath before he reached into his pocket for his eye drops. He applied them and turned. He saw Yagi and Midoriya walking towards one of the doors. "Midoriya," Shouta said out loud and sternly enough to make the boy flinch as if he had been whipped, recoiling as he turned. Yagi had a hand on his shoulder as Shouta walked cautiously towards him. "What was that?" Izuku flinched again, like someone had planted a fist in his stomach. Shouta sighed. "No one thinks that you wanted to do that at all, Midoriya," Shouta said calmly, "but we need to know what happened." The boy looked back down at his hand, his eyes wide and wet, face becoming as pale as a sheet and lip quivering. "He's terrified," Shouta realized, of himself. No way in hell he did this on purpose. But still, what was that? I don't know." Shouta raised an eyebrow. I mean it," Izuku said. The power welled up, and I couldn't control it. I just wanted to push myself in. And he stared at his hand, the fingers shaking in his vision. "It's like something that I've believed in suddenly turned on me. I was scared and I hurt Parker and Uraraka." He shuddered, looking at the bloodstained window, almost ready to cry. A hand dropped to his shoulder, and the shaking stopped. Above him, Yagi offered a soft smile. The smaller form of the number one hero somehow still seemed to stand above even Shouta at that moment, and he had to look up to him instead of the other way around. "I'll take full responsibility." "Not the point," Aizawa sighed, rubbing at his forehead, already feeling a headache coming on. Discovering mechanics of quirks was nothing new. The classic example was the girl who they originally thought was a water generator, but she was instead a hydrokinetic. But the fundamentals were largely still the same. Midoriya was a simple power-type quirk, not any type of emitter or energy-based quirk. Problem Child was still a problem. "I can make an announcement of an unexpected power development if anything gets out," the teacher promised. "But Midoriya," the boy perked up, worry still clear on his face. "Even though you didn't mean to do it. But wanting doesn't mean that people didn't get hurt," Shouta said sternly. "Your first and only priority until I say otherwise is getting that quirk under control. You've done it before, you can do it again. Am I clear?" His student gave him a shaky nod, then Shouta gestured to the door with his head. "Get going." Toshinori really didn't know what he just saw. That quirk wasn't one for all, but it had come from young Midoriya regardless. It was like nothing that he'd ever seen before. A quirk that went wild. It was as if the boy had just woken up one day with a quirk and used it against someone without meaning to. A child's reflex, that's what it looked like. But why was young Midoriya the one to have it? "Are you feeling okay?" Toshinori asked. The man sat in a visitor's chair in Recovery Girl's clinic. The nurse had given the two some privacy, letting the number one hero look at his successor as the boy stared down at his hand. "Physically, I think so," Toshinori sighed. He figured as much. "You can't blame yourself, young Midoriya. There's no way you could have known." "You would have," he uttered, looking to the ground still. Toshinori shook his head. No, I wouldn't have," the blonde said with a small shake of his head. "It would have exploded during the middle of a fight that even I couldn't prepare for. And likely with even worse results." Izuku shook, his fingers closing into a tight fist. "But, no, none of this. I'm not perfect, young Midoriya," Yagi stressed. "If I was, the world would be a much better place." Bringing as much courage as he could, he placed a hand on Midoriya's shoulder comfortingly. "So don't think that you'll have to be perfect too. People got hurt, but that's it, they'll recover, and I've no doubt that they'll forgive you." At least, Toshinori hoped. "But you did surprise me in a way that I could have gone without," Toshinori said, leaning back in his chair. "What was that?" The question brought a bit of focus back into young Midoriya's eyes, his fist opening and closing reflexively. "Like I said, I don't know. I saw some shadows when I was pushing one for all and then." He paused, looking up. What kind of shadows? Toshinori asked, leaning in closely. They looked like faces. 8 sets of eyes, just staring into me. 8. Izuku stopped, his palm remaining open, allowing some sparks of one for all to dance along his fingers. I felt like they were expecting something out of me. Like they wanted me to do something scary, Toshinori intoned. The boy jumped. That's how it felt. I didn't think it would be too scary, but now that you mention it. Breathe, the skeletal blonde said easily, holding his hands placatingly. I just meant it as a joke. The boy took a few breaths and nodded. But it does bring up the question, Toshinori continued, cause I never saw anything like that when I ever used one for all. Nothing? The boy asked. Toshinori shook his head. Not even a peep, or even a cool vision, he said, pausing to rub his chin. I remember my mentor mentioning something about voices once upon a time, but I never really gave it too much thought. Is something happening to one for all? Izuku asked, and Toshinori could hear the fear in his voice. Maybe, Toshinori said, holding up a hand to stop the ranting, but that might not be a bad thing. For all that we know, the quirk is evolving in a way that I couldn't expect given how it went from me to you. So you don't have any ideas? Izuku asked. Not many, no, Toshinori admitted. I had it twice as long as my mentor did, but at the end of the day, it was just a tool to help me in the pursuit of justice. I never really stopped to wonder about its nature or how it really worked. The important things were already there, or were beaten into me by some good teachers. But I doubt it's anything bad regardless. Even the most dangerous quirks couldn't manipulate or destroy one for all, so the chances of any quirk making it go crazy are pretty slim. He leaned back over and patted the boy on the back. So don't worry, Toshinori said with as much confidence as he could, offering that $1 million smile and a thumbs up. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out and train with it. I've already gotten in touch with Nezu. He's willing to let us rent out a training facility for privacy until we can get this sorted. Rising from his seat and ignoring the way that his back ached from his posture. So for now, get some rest. I'll be a call away if you need me. Izuku nodded and went back to looking at his hand. The boy clearly wasn't totally okay after that talk, but hopefully Parker and Uraraka would be willing to hit home what Yagi had set up. For now, he left the room with a wave, and only then did he let his exhaustion show and asked a question mentally. What now? It was getting late in the evening as Rumi lounged on the couch, seeing the news go by as she sipped some rejuvenation drink filled with veggies and fruits. She would normally have blanched at the stuff, but it helped her in recovery and digestion. The rabbit hero had a large bowl at Satonaka's on her return trip to the Tokyo area after going up as far north as Sendai. She had earned the extra large. Mirko-san, you awake? Said Shizune from behind the couch, and Rumi's ear-muffed ears perked up. Yeah, just chillin', she replied, going to the next channel on the weather. After a day or two of rest, it'd be time to head towards Nagasaki and the southern end of Japan. Well, since you're awake and have nothing to do, she saw her smaller friend trot up to the front, hands on some papers, and the dark-skinned woman rolled her eyes. Fuck, I ain't gonna take on a work study, Shizune. You should know that. Well, I am your secretary. With you being a licensed hero and all, I need to show you some viable candidates to overlook and quote. You still need to sign off on them. Just forge my electronic signature for me. Rumi waved. Like, it's not that fucking hard. Forging a signature is a crime. Shizune huffed, her raccoon ears and tail twitching. The white-haired woman groaned, facing into the pillow. We do this every year. Well, our deadline is fast approaching. You need to sign off on which hero prospects you'll take on for a work study. They'll have more responsibilities than an intern after all, and it's required. Rumi sighed, knowing she couldn't talk or fight her way out of this. She rose up, rolling her neck as she walked past Shizune, taking the papers in her hands. I could see if Parker-san would like to come back, Shizune asked. Rumi stopped, blinking. Huh? She asked, her brain still trying to catch up. Shizune turned, looking Rumi dead in the eye. I talked to him a couple of days ago, she said, looking down at the ground. He's been doing well. Bullshit. Shizune flinched. He's not well until he is. It's as simple as that. Yet you were glued to the TV, watching the entire coverage of the Island incident from the news. Shizune retorted. Rumi winced. You really need to not butt into my shit, Shizune. For fuck's sake. Rumi had a hand to her nose. I didn't even ask, he told me himself. Shizune said, arms crossed. And I bumped into Parker when I was out with my friends at a rookie metal showcase in downtown Yusutafu. I wasn't actively looking for him. It was just chance. Then I highly suggest you don't go to the casino or play pachinko then. Rumi stormed towards her desk. Look, mere Rumi, she said, and Rumi looked up as she fired up her screen. I'm not saying you offer Parker a work study. Far from it, I just think that you and him could benefit from a talk. What else is there to say? I told him to go home and think on what he's done with his indecisive ass, she retorted, signing in. Yet that night he took the initiative to hunt down Stain. Shizune walked up. Even when you shut him down. Reminds me of a certain someone who would go off on her own to do what she believes is right. Rumi was beginning to grind her teeth, her red eyes glaring at her shorter secretary. All he took was what he learned from you, and you punished him for it. He's fucked in the head, Shizune. You don't get to play armchair psychologist when all you did was take a 101 course in college. Shizune was silent, looking to the ground. You think I'm dumb because I'm your secretary, Rumi. I see it too, you know. Rumi was wide-eyed. Her oldest friend lifted her head up, her eyes sad. You're not the only one who sees Shohei in him. Why else would you be so angry at his actions? I get it, Rumi, she murmured. Rumi was silent, arms shaking and fists clenched. But why don't you just talk with him? Like, over coffee or something. See how he is. F this. I'm going for a walk. Rumi rose up, taking her earmuffs off and tossing them to the couch as she walked past the smaller woman before slamming the door. After some steps, she sighed, hand running down her face. F me, I'm acting like a teenager on her period. She thought before she stretched out her legs, then took a mighty leap onto the roofs. The ambience of cars, nightlife from the bars, TVs playing all around her as she leapt through the air, fading in and out with new sounds as she hopped hundreds of meters in a single bound. The feeling of guilt began to gnaw at her stomach. She hated that feeling. I should apologize, give her a raise too, she mused before she went back to her words. As she backflipped, the moon at her back, Rumi landed atop a lamppost, rising up and looking at her hand. You're not the only one who sees Shohei in him. Shizune's words resounded and echoed in her head. Shohei wasn't as strong as Peter. He got killed because of a lot of stupid fucking decisions made by stupid fucking people around him. And Peter was as stupid as Shohei was to boot. Her ears twitched, and Mirko heard it. The sound of running, heavy breathing. Footsteps were soft. No shoes, no socks. Bare feet. Someone small. Her eyes narrowed, suspicions rising. Her muscles tensed, and the bronze-skinned rabbit hero leapt over buildings, jumping off of a water tower, then a subway station awning before she landed on a sidewalk. Taking a few steps forward, the desperate panting was deafening as she rounded the bend of the alley. She'd expected a few different possibilities. Someone with a mutation quirk trying to be sneaky, maybe someone just rushing to get home. A 3-foot-nothing girl in a hospital gown nearly knocking her off balance, crashing into her thigh was not it. A child, with long gray pale blue hair, a small horn on the right side of her forehead, arms and legs covered in bloody bandages. Hey there, you okay? Mirko asked, kneeling down, and the girl looked up, her red eyes the same similar shade as the rabbit hero as she almost tackled her, hugging her as the woman gasped in sudden surprise. And she felt it, a shivering. It was September. It wasn't even that cold out tonight. Come on now, Eri, it's way past your bedtime, said a voice, smooth, low and male, the source coming from the darkness of the hallway. And oh my, now this is awkward. The girl was looking back, still as a corpse. Yet Mirko's ears knew she was alive, because the pounding of her heart was as if it was trying to claw its way out. My apologies, Mirko-san. The man came into the light and she saw him. Black pants, a black dress shirt with a matte gray tie, a green hoodie jacket with a purple fur trim collar that seemed out of place. He had short brown hair and cold yellow eyes that were sharp and on alert. My daughter Eri has a very overactive imagination, he said, his voice muffled by the red beak-like mask he wore, adjusting it with his gloved hands. She just loves to play and always gets a bruise here and there. I bet she's gonna be a Parker specialist someday, like you in a way. Haha, kids sure do love their heroes. Mirko looked down at her. The girl in her arms, Eri, was looking at her chest, not at her. But through her, she could feel her tremble, the rapid heartbeat in her ears, the bandages on her arms and legs. She looked ready to cry but didn't. Her mouth moved, and barely a whisper came forth, but she heard it loud enough. Don't go, please. She was terrified. Mirko looked at the man. She tried to smile. What came out was rather more a baring of teeth. That's so, huh? Later that night, unable to move, unable to speak. All around, a dark wasteland. Before him were several people, some shrouded in shadow at a distance within this space. But he could see some more clearly than others, and they were the closest. A stunningly beautiful muscular woman with dark hair and a white cape facing forward. Beside her, a yellow phantom with spiky hair that looked eerily familiar. A man with a collar that covered his lower face. A man that appeared similar to Kaken, save for shorter hair, a somber expression, and a scar on the bridge of his nose. They were all looking forward and like something out of a corrupted MP3 file, or a scratchy ancient VHS, he saw two figures, phasing in and out of existence. One was a man in disheveled clothing, a simple aqua long-sleeve shirt and trousers, on his knees. Several meters away facing him was a man standing confidently in a simple tailless suit, hands in his pockets as dark red wisps emanated from them both. They both had white hair, the kneeling one with long hair down to his chin, the other well kept and groomed in. That smile was uneasy on the man. His eyes were shrouded in shadow. "I can't let you do this," said the kneeling man, his voice young, weak, yet firm. "What you're doing is wrong. You can't force yourself on the world like this." "Oh, but I can, dear little brother," the standing man spoke, smirking as he approached, confidently and brazenly. "I am the only one with the power, the knowledge, and the will to act accordingly. I will be the one to rule, and Japan will prosper, but not with fear and manipulation, taking quirks on a whim or the request of vengeful people, giving them to those who follow you. You're not some messiah. You're just amassing an army of sycophants for your own ends. I see how they look at you. You're doing something to their brains when you give them abilities, don't you? Taking and giving quirks." Izuku's eyes widened. "Is this?" "Yep," said a voice, and Izuku jumped, feeling an elbow on his shoulder as he turned. The man beside him was rather gruff-looking, looking like a biker with a wide and broad jaw, bald head, and leather jacket with yellow goggles. "That's him, One for All's mortal enemy and its origin." Izuku's eyes widened. "One for All's mortal enemy, all for one. So what? Japan will prosper under me." The man stopped before his little brother. "The people I place in power will bring this country back into the light from the dark ages. We will rise to the top and look down upon no longer. You only need to join me, little brother." His voice was smooth, yet had a commanding and dark edge to it. "The quirks I can give you to heal and enhance your frail constitution, you need only accept me." "I won't." The man shook his head. "I won't accept a quirk from you, not when it was taken from someone else. I may be weak, but I won't submit to you, brother, not after all the things you've done." The man paused, and though his face was obscured, Izuku could feel the anger building inside him. "Our parents would be alive if the measures I have implemented today would have been there back then, you know." All for One spoke, sneering down at his little brother. "I can't believe you don't see that. Even so, Mom and Dad, if they had known what you've become, they would have been ashamed." The little brother wailed, hand over his heart as he coughed. "You only think for yourself. You just want to be like the bad guy in the comics we used to read. And not a fool. I know for certain one day you will answer for your crimes." All for One lifted his head, and Izuku's heart chilled, seeing lavender eyes gazing down at the man as he bore a dark smile. "Maybe, but it won't be this day, I will say this." "You are right, little brother." His hand glowed red, and the brother gasped. "You are weak." The smile was ear to ear, teeth bared. "Let your dear older brother help you with that." "No, stop it. No, no." All for One latched down. Izuku wanted to rush in, to stop it, but his eyes looked down, seeing the familiar dark teal energy that came from earlier today locking him in place. "Let me go," Izuku growled, trying to budge as the younger man screamed, and All for One's laughter echoed through the wasteland as the darkness swallowed them both. "And that was how One for All was born, kiddo," said the biker man, Izuku turning. "And you need to calm down, look at your hands." Izuku's eyes followed, and the wisps of darkness were raging as if they were coming from an angry blowtorch. "Gotta say, never would have thought you would awaken to my quirk first. Hell, I didn't think you'd awaken to any of our other quirks." "Awaken? Other quirks? Then, he's a former user of One for All, then the shade from before with the spiky hair." Now it clicked. He had memorabilia of him all over his entire room. That was All Might, yet he was only a fiery shade, not a defined person like this man and the others from before. "Yep, the name's Banjo de Goro Akalariat," he said, pointing at himself. Banjo had an unfriendly face to him, but his eyes, while sharp, weren't hostile. "And you need to get it together." He pointed at Izuku's chest. "After all, if you just go berserk like that and let your emotions consume you, you'll only wind up repeating what you did earlier today on your buddy." Izuku's eyes widened, and Banjo blinked. "Oh yeah, you can't talk, can you nod or shake your head?" he asked, and the green-haired youth nodded. "Okay, good. Now, you gotta work harder now, you hear? Sure, there will always be others stronger than you, but don't let it get to you, okay?" he said, pointing at Izuku's chest. "It's fine to feel the drive and need to succeed when watching others do so as well, but don't go thinking ill of them or yourself, okay? Just keep your head down to the grind and you'll come out on top. The same applies with our quirks too," he said, holding his hand. "Speaking of, I better tell you what the deal is with my quirk." The black wisps of darkness that looked so familiar to Izuku emerged. "This is my badass power, Black Whip. In a way, it's kinda similar to what your friend had with those web shooters of his. But they're far more versatile, have unlimited ammunition, and don't need to be built in a garage or something, so I say it's a lot cooler than your friend's doohickeys, but that's my opinion. Anyway, you can latch onto anything, grabbing any target and bringing them to the curb, whether it be for capturing villains or saving others. Banjo stated. The dark whips with a teal tint moved and coiled like serpents in his hand as he twirled it around like a lasso, then forming them into tentacles or even splitting into a hive of them and sticking to the ground. It can reach and grasp anything in its range, and I bet, now that I think about it, it's why I manifested in you first. Banjo nodded. Yeah, you wanted to reach towards him. Or rather, towards your friend's level. I'm a bit metaphorical and deep, but I think that sounds about right. He then got serious. But you gotta be careful with this. Black Whip is now being empowered by One for All, and the One for All inside you is stronger than it was when I used it. P equals Q, the Black Whip you'll be wielding will be stronger than when I had it. So you got to be able to rein in your emotions. It's okay to be angry, don't let it consume ya. Control it, as you would any emotion, and you'll be able to handle my quirk like a ride down the fast lane. He smirked, the teal dark wisps fading away into his hand as he began to think. Izuku nodded back, the man cupping his chin. By the way, he looked down at him. I know you want to get stronger, to succeed where all of us have failed and stop all for one. But growing too hard and too fast can have drawbacks. Izuku looked down at the ground, but he looked back up. That doesn't mean you can slack off either. You gotta find that perfect medium between working hard and going too hard, you know. Sort of like how number 8 warned you about overtraining when you were honing your vessel. Wait, how do they know? Izuku mused, eyes wide, and Banjo smirked, tapping his head. Hey, even I get a few glimpses down your memory lane when you dream every now and then. But One for All is growing inside you. What started as a small spark inside the first user is now growing into a raging flame. From cinders to embers to a firestorm. You need to learn to control this power, even as it grows, before it controls you in turn. Banjo crossed his arms. Black Whip earlier today activated with your anger and frustration to reach the pinnacle you wish to reach. To surpass your friend honestly. Looking back, most of the past users tried fighting all for one solo and look where it got us. Me included, sadly, he sighed, rubbing the back of his head. Dying and living on as a ghost really gives you perspective, you know what I mean. Izuku couldn't help but shrug and nod, but he had an idea. Sort of. The man then hissed, wincing, and the boy reacted accordingly. Why was he in pain? Gah, shoot, my time's running out. I'm gonna be fading away again. Damn hell. Even with a pained grimace, he had a confident grin. Anyways, kid, I know you'll get my power under control. You're not the type of kid to make the same mistake twice. Hell, better than me anyway. And my personal opinion, if you want to defeat all for one, try and share the load, you know. After all, I was in a biker gang myself before I went hero. He smirked, patting his jacket. Succeeding as a team, with friends by your side, there ain't no better feelin'. He pointed at Izuku's chest. So keep your tabs on your heart like you do your pedometer and fuel tank, and you'll be just fine. You're the 9th user now, and One for All is ready to bloom, once the other 6 quirks manifest. He smirked, into the force that will defeat all for one. But don't go at it alone. Be better than all of us. Just some words from your friendly neighborhood biking hero. Soon the darkness began to swim around Izuku's eyes, and Banjo seemed farther and farther away. I know you can do it. We all know you can. Darkness, Izuku gasped, turning over in bed and panting as he looked at his hands. Banjo de Goro 6 other quirks. One for All. He looked at his scarred hands and he took a deep breath, even as the smell of fajitas drifted into his bedroom. His body glowed, and Izuku brought himself up to 15% and focused. He eyed a pen on the nightstand, aiming for it. Small black wisps, as thin as floss, emerged from his fingers, appearing and latching on as it retracted back to him, disappearing as they went with the All Might pen in his hand. His face was alight as he reached for his phone. He needs to call All Might Ab. It's dead. He mused, the phone screen black as he sighed. He placed it into the charger. He did drop down for a nap the moment he got home after all. Izuku, Mom called out. It's been an hour, sweetie. Time to wake up from your nap. Dinner. While Izuku still felt the drain of today on him, the boy couldn't help but smile and get up from the bed with a pep to his step. Coming, Mom. After dinner, he needed to tell All Might about this, pronto. Eri shivered, clutching tightly to the dark-skinned woman's leg, trembling in abject fear. So, she's your daughter? She heard the woman ask. Yes. Overhaul's voice was oily in the girl's ear as a whimper was choked off in her throat. She's going through a bit of a phase. Gave me quite the runaround. It's getting late though, and she needs to get her rest. She wouldn't want to trouble you, would she? Eri froze. He was going to kill her, like he'd killed others who Eri talked to, who wanted to help. She clutched at the woman's leg, not wanting to let her go but knowing she had to or the woman would be dead soon like all the others. The woman stepped back, away from Eri. The girl felt her grip slip free from her leg. Alright then, have a nice night. Eri looked up, eyes wide and feeling her heart sink as the woman stepped back. She felt her tiny hand be taken by Overhaul. His grip was soft, but firm, slowly getting harder. Thank you, Mirko-san. You too. He turned around, guiding Eri back towards the darkness of the alley. She couldn't save her. No one can. No one when. She heard the sound of the impact before she saw it, or felt it. Overhaul's grip nearly yanked her off her feet before it slackened, his scream echoing through the night in a howling gragh. As he was launched into the darkness of the alleyway, Eri felt the wind flow by her. Your kid my ass. Go away you F. Mirko shouted, snarling before reaching down and scooping Eri up in her arms. The girl barely had time to process everything that was happening before she was flying through the air. It's gonna be alright, kid. Eri felt the shock of the impacts from the woman's feet as she landed and leapt, putting as much distance between herself and Overhaul as possible. The wind whipped at the girl's hair, clutching at the rabbit hero before they fell like an iron weight atop a building. Eri felt her heart pounding under her ribs while her mind struggled to catch up to the whirlwind of madness as the woman pulled out her phone. Yo Shizuan, hustle up. I got a kid who needs a hospital check fast. Where's the nearest one? They started to move again. Where are we going? Eri asked, hugging onto her as she looked about, seeing the world pass by around her as Mirko ran. Hopping from rooftop to rooftop, the skyline of Tokyo at night a wondrous myriad of colors. Somewhere safe. Eri, right. Yeah, don't you worry Eri. Everything's gonna be okay. Mirko assured before looking back at her phone. Put up a notice for a sketchy guy in a plague doctor mask too. Possible child abuse. Thanks a million. She hung up and Eri for the first time in what felt like forever, finally felt safe. GragHACademia. Kai cursed, writhing on the ground as he pulled himself out of the crater in the side of the building that fucking Hafu cunt had kicked him into. His glove evaporated before he took a deep breath, closing his eyes and tapping his back. Shattered vertebrae. Broken bones, severed muscles. He tapped, and he yelled as he felt his flesh explode in agony for but a moment, his clothes, skin, and body reforming back to normal as the brown-haired man breathed heavily. Of all the fucking times, now she was gone. Eri was gone. He reached his hand into his pocket, praying that his phone wasn't broken as he pulled it out. Some cracks on the screen, but it was functional. He called a number, staggering to his feet. Hey boss, what's? Get everyone together at the hideout. Overhaul cursed as he leaned against the wall, staggering as he took deep breaths. Eri's been taken. What? Mimic squawked on the other line. Oh okay then. Which one of the Hideo? The main one, idiot. Overhaul hung up and he walked back into the darkness, feeling his heart race and blood turn cold. He couldn't afford to lose her, not when his organization was so close to finally making their mark. The Yakuza may not be as influential as before, but they were no less deadly. You'll pay. Yubichi Kai growled as he lurked deeper into the alleyway. Will you be able to take care of her? Rumi asked. The humid night air was gone now, replaced by the AC of the hospital lobby. We will, the front desk nurse said as she and other nurses approached the girl. We will need to conduct some examinations and checkups. She looks not good. Rumi nodded. That assessment was what led her to act on her hunch and attack the guy so readily. Eri's bandages, her general weight, the sallow skin, the track marks of needles along her arms, even those faded bruises. Yeah, this girl didn't look good and that was obvious. As the nurse came closer he clutched at her leg so tightly that it actually started to register as pain. I don't want to go. Eri whimpered as Rumi put a hand on her head, smiling softly. Don't you worry kid, these are nice doctors. They're gonna look at you and see how healthy you are. You're safe here. I don't want you to go, Eri stated, hugging her muscular leg tighter. Rumi looked at the portly nurse who had a toaster for a head. Is it okay if I come with? She doesn't have a guardian so. Of course. Mirko took a deep breath as her hand gently enfolded Eri's. It's gonna be alright kid. I'll stay by your side, okay, she said, offering a big grin. I'm afraid she will need to be with the doctors alone for a little bit, said a male voice. Rumi looked up, and walking into the lobby was a rather tall and thin man in a light gray suit topped by dark green hair with yellow streaks. The glasses upon his nose and sharp daggers for eyes bored right into her. Who is that? Eri asked, and Rumi's teeth began to grind. Of course the biggest stiff in the hero industry would show up here. But why? Nothing bad Eri. I'll join you very soon, okay, she said, smiling and petting the girl on the head as the head nurse, Hinako going by the tag on her breast, took Eri with her, even as she had to dislodge her from Rumi's thick leg. It's gonna be okay sweetie. Come along, we're gonna have a checkup. Hinako's voice trailed off as Rumi looked back, seeing Eri walk away, her eyes silently pleading. I'll be there soon, she reassured the kid before looking towards the approaching well-dressed man. So, Night-Eye. Mirko turned around, leaning against the desk with her bunny tail resting on the ledge. What's up? I feel it's best if we speak in private. Come outside. Night-Eye answered. It concerns the girl you saved. Mirko narrowed her eyes and followed him out of the lobby back into the humid September night. Before her, a luxurious black Porsche idled as he opened the door. Come in. We won't go anywhere. I feel that you're not a fan of the humidity. Neither am I. Mirko gave him a sideways glance. The man had a face of stone, but his eyes looked annoyed. Cross even as she got in, scooting to the other side as Night-Eye came inside, sitting with his hands upon his lap. In the driver's seat, Mirko saw a girl with dark blue hair and light blue skin look back. Hi Mirko-san, I'm a big fan and... Bubble girl. Night-Eye cut her off, and Mirko rolled her eyes. When I heard of how much of a killjoy you were, I didn't think it would be true. Mirko drawled. Let the girl at least say hello. I'll be blunt with you, Mirko. You've made things a great deal more complicated tonight. More than they need to be. You've taken someone of great interest to overhaul. Night-Eye said, and Mirko perked up. Wait, overhaul? You mean the Shitsu Hasaken? That overhaul, Shy Hasakai, Night-Eye corrected, and that girl you saved was someone of very particular interest to him. This wasn't the first time she made an attempted escape. I was getting ready to pitch to the Hero Public Safety Commission to get approval for a sting to wipe the Yakuza off the face of Japan for good. And you, he turned, glaring hard at her, threw over half a year's worth of surveillance and intelligence work down the drain. Because now Overhaul has been spooked. So you're saying, this wasn't her first attempt at escaping from him? You're telling me you had a chance to save that girl, and didn't? Mirko asked, in a whisper, a necessary unpleasantness. We take the girl. Overhaul and his entire operation go underground and continue to cause problems while distributing. Mirko seized him by the collar of his shirt and slammed him against the door of the car as his glasses threatened to fall off. But his yellow eyes were no less hard against the fury burning in Mirko's gaze. You could have saved that girl from whatever this bastard was doing to her, and you threw her to the fucking wolves. I won't repeat myself. You know why. We were planning to save the girl eventually. Night-Eye didn't seem to resist, staring down at her. But too soon, and we lose our best chance to remove the Shy Hasakai from the Japanese underworld. Your little stunt tonight will push him back into hiding and we'll have to start all over again. It'll be all the harder and costlier too. We would have had a warrant, but your decision cost us dearly. Fuck you. Mirko let him go with a shove, sitting back on her side of the car. You may have the popularity contests down along with the rest of your ilk in the public eye, but we all know at the end of the day I'm the one who gets things done. Night-Eye replied, not you. The girl glared back, silent as she wished that she had a laser eye quirk to melt this cold-hearted ass. I can trust that, despite your language, you'll keep this matter quiet. The HPSC is already aware of me talking to you tonight. You were such a rat in elementary school. Get off being the teacher's pet like the good lap bitch you are. Mirko drawled, Night-Eye not taking her taunt. But fine, fuck it. I won't tell if it won't get your panties in a bunch. Good. I will try to salvage this as best as I can. And when the time comes, I will call you to help take part in the sting operation. With you having assaulted Overhaul, the Hasakai will keep an eye on you. You're not some no-name intern. You're one of the top 10 in the country. Night-Eye unlocked the car. I'll keep in touch. Whatever. She slammed the door and marched back inside. Alright, another day. Peter mused to himself as he walked into Class 1A, seeing everyone still filing in and socializing amongst themselves. He felt the eyes on him almost immediately. You feeling okay, Parker? Kaminari asked and Peter blinked. Oh yeah, yesterday. Oh yeah, recovery girl's kiss took care of me. He noticed Ochako sitting by. Oh good morning Ochako. The brunette perked up as he walked over. You doing okay? I should be asking you that, but yeah, I'm fine. The girl replied. Still, can't believe what happened yesterday. Yeah, well, Peter shrugged. Still, I'm glad you're okay. When I left the infirmary you were still napping. Well, a broken arm can do that. She laughed nervously. Mom and Dad were a bit worried, but it comes with the territory of being in a hero school, and all. You did have us all worried though, Peter-san. Peter turned, seeing Momo approach. Morning, Momo-san. He nodded, and the girl nodded back. Good morning. But yeah, I'm fine. Like Ochako said, at a hero school, a few bumps and bruises are to be expected. Not when it comes from an unexpected source. Takoyami mused to the side. He was sitting, arms crossed and brooding as usual as he opened an eye his way. I didn't expect Midoriya to wield the powers of darkness like that. Yeah, I thought Midoriya's quirk was a simple power type. Asui said with a finger on her chin. quirks tend to evolve under certain conditions and situations. From what I've skimmed on an article online, they call these incidents awakenings. Momo explained. Perhaps that's what Midoriya underwent. Anything's possible. For now, let's just not press Izuku on it too badly. Can't imagine how he feels right now. Peter looked to the side as he saw Ochako hold her arm, the one that had been broken, and her expression mirrored the Americans. Of course, Rishi was cut off with the door opening and everyone turned. And Izuku was there, his face neutral in expression before he saw the group chatting to the side by the desks, and he winced. Morning, Izuku. Peter waved. Oh, hey. Izuku walked up, hands on the straps of his backpack as he approached the small group. Are you doing okay? He asked. Yeah, Deku-kun. We were worried about you, Ochako exclaimed, and Izuku cringed visibly. I should be the one apologizing. I'm sorry. He bowed deeply. I never meant to hurt any of you when? Hey, it's fine. Peter spoke up, smiling down at the green-haired boy as he remained bowed. Raise your head, dude. The boy did so, looking guilty. It was an accident. Yeah, Deku-kun, we know you wouldn't have done something like that intentionally, Ochako added. After all, better for accidents to occur in hero school than in the field, right? She said, keeping a positive outlook. Uraraka is right, Momo added. Best for situations like these to occur in controlled environments. Heaven knows what could have happened without Aizawa-sensei around. Izuku rubbed his arm, looking to the side a bit. I guess you're right. Still, sorry for my quirk going haywire like that. It won't happen again. I promise. I've already talked to some teachers for additional training and refinement after school to help get this under control, Izuku said, looking at his hands. There's still a long way to go before I can reach where I need to be. Peter began to piece it together in his head. Extra teacher mentoring, after hours, where he needed to go. That was definitely code for All Might guidance. Was he not receiving direct mentorship from him before? Or not enough? Your quirk seemed to show signs of awakening, Momo espoused. After all, it was but a simple power type before, and now you can utilize that dark mass. Maybe you have dark mass swirling about in your body, and that's what makes you super strong, Asui asked. Indeed, Midoriya, Takoyami spoke out. You've risen from the dark morass when you first came here. Now you are the equivalent of a blinding light. Eventually, you will become like the sun itself, he said, arms crossed and eyes closed. Sure, what he said. Peter smirked, gesturing to the raven-headed boy with a thumb. All right, said Shouta, paused, seeing everyone in their seats and looking at him as he entered the classroom. Good. He set his eyes on Midoriya and Parker near the windows, seeing them staring at him. Yagi mentioned that he and Nezu had a plan to help tutor and guide the boy after school in a private email chain, so it was clear that the situation had been resolved. Parker and Uraraka's medical reports were clean too after a visit to Recovery Girl. Knowing those two, they'd likely mend fences no problem. Now then, we are in that time of year where your work studies are going to begin in earnest, Shouta said as he stood behind the central desk. These are essentially temporary sidekick positions you will be assigned to, depending on your connections made and experience garnered throughout the past year. The sports festival, the internships, the provisional exam, everything has led to this. Once a semester you will be undertaking a work studies period for a month. This is where you truly begin taking your first major step into becoming pro heroes. He looked over at Shiro, Sato, and Aoyama. For those who do not have their licenses, you will be taking the HPSC remedial classes. Once you get your schedules, email them to me and we can work out a schedule that fits. Shiro, Sato, Aoyama. Sound good? He got affirmations from the trio and turned to the rest of the class. Note that just because you're doing the remedial courses, he saw them perk up from their depressed state. Doesn't mean you're exempt from hero work either. You three will be able to take on internships, just in the same vein as you took them prior to the summer. Utilize what connections you have then and sign up. But be sure to keep the pro hero you're working with informed of the remedial courses too for you to earn your licenses. You have to work twice as hard to catch up. I hope you three are ready. The three nodded, and Shouta took a deep breath. The rest of homeroom will be used for you to find and settle on the heroes you wish to go for a work study with. If and when you find the hero, use it as a study period until the next class. For hero period, since it's the last period of the day, you can use it for training in the battle centers, or you can leave school early if you want to go for an interview with the hero you wish to apply to. Shouta brought up his trusty sleeping bag, yawning lightly, that he felt his phone buzz as he looked at it. It was an email. Sample analysis of medical polymer conclusive. Well, now he had his answers. But for now, that'll be all. And he let himself plop down to the ground for a much-needed early morning nap. So, who's going to who? Kirishima asked, his mouth full of steak as he ate. Peter looked up at him, and he could see the others around him doing the same. He swallowed his meat and let out a content sigh. I got an email of a hero wanting to recruit me back after the sports festival, but I chose fourth kind because of how manly he was. I'm going different this time around. Not going back to fourth kind. You chose him because he was manly, right? Izuku asked, and Kirishima looked to the side. He was, don't get me wrong. The redhead admitted. I just want to try out a new hero is all. He then crossed his arms and grinned. That's why I'm going with Fatgum. Momo perked up. You too, Kirishima-san. She spoke, and Peter blinked. Fatgum is, who again? He's the BMI hero. Izuku spoke up, grinning. He's well known around Tokyo for being a master of fast, non-lethal captures of villains. To say nothing of his quirk, fat absorption, which allows him to store his body fat as a defensive countermeasure, and he can even burn the fat off to give him extra punching power too. Wow, he must be quite the yo-yo weight gainer then, Peter mused. He then perked up. Wait, Momo, you're going with him too? Yes, his quirk and mine share similar functions. His being body fat and mine lipids. Momo dabbed her lips after she had consumed her fine shrimp pasta. Thank you, Lunch Rush. On top of his non-lethal takedown expertise, I figured that I can learn quite a lot from a man like him. Similar to Kirishima-san, I am branching out to broaden my learning experience. I could go back to Musha, but that would be treading old ground. Her hand glowed, conjuring another napkin. So I must make the most of my time here, you know. That does make sense. Peter nodded, understanding her logic. What about you, Shoto? Where do you think you'll be going? The dual-haired boy was busy toying with his cold soba as he was addressed. Sorry, can you repeat that? My mind was elsewhere at the moment. Peter followed his gaze across the cafeteria at the sight of some of Class 1B socializing and talking. Shizaki was there, as was Kendo, if his memory served him correctly. Work studies. Which hero are you going to work under? Oh, that. I'll go work under Endeavor again. Shoto muttered, slurping his soba. He's the number 2 hero for a reason. His eyes hardened and he remained quiet as Peter felt it'd be best not to pry. I'm going to be working with Ed Shot again myself. Izuku added as Peter looked his way. He's in the top 10, and I learned a lot under him, but I imagine I could learn more. Yeah. How about you, Parker? Mina spoke for the first time from her side of the table. Yeah, didn't you work with Mirko a while back? Kirishima stated as Izuku cringed lightly and Peter chewed his steak a bit to think of a response. Because man, working under someone in the top 10 has to be a dream come true. Not really, Peter thought as he collected his thoughts. He had hundreds if not thousands of emails that he could have combed through from his prior internship offers for work-study opportunities. He hadn't thought much into it. He felt his phone buzz and he glanced at it, seeing a text from you. Gonna hit the market on the way home. Want anything? Peter smiled as he already knew his answer. I didn't know you moved here to Musutafu, Ed Shot-san. Izuku said as he walked up to the new office. He had given him a phone call, hoping for a chance at a work study, and Ed Shot told him to meet him at a certain location near downtown Musutafu. Curious, the boy had waited until Hero Period started to leave the campus and traveled to the assigned address. And much to his luck, Ed Shot was there in front of some moving vans. Indeed. And welcome. Ed Shot smiled, turning around with his arms crossed. I'm honored to see that I am still viable as a teacher for you. Most kids would want to go with a different hero to work under to broaden their horizons. Well, that's because I feel I can still learn more under you. There is also, well, a new situation that came up as well. Izuku mused. The silver-haired ninja opened his visible eye. Can we talk it over in private? Of course. That's more than fine, Midoriya. By the way, Izuku made sure to stay out of the way of the moving vans. What brought you here to Musutafu anyway? What about Kashiki? There's been some new heroes in Kashiki that are on the up and up. My old roving grounds will be fine. Ed Shot replied, seeing some of his sidekicks talk with the movers as they carried in furniture and chairs. I felt it prudent to go to Musutafu so I can broaden my network. See, I am starting up a team-up of sorts. A team-up? Indeed. I have gotten in touch with some hero firms looking to see if we can have a soft merger of sorts. And the firm with the most compatible team in my opinion is located here. Ed Shot pointed across the street. Izuku turned, noticing the billboard above the 4-story building. I would have preferred a building to be right next to them, but most of the tenants there weren't willing to move their businesses. Property taxes and rent had a hand too, alas. The ninja shrugged. Izuku could see the figures displayed on the agency's building. Kamui Woods, Death Arms, and Teeter, screamed a jovial feminine voice as Izuku walked around the truck, looking to see where and what it was. He felt Ed Shot stand beside him, gazing across the street. And over there, Mount Lady in costume was glomping Peter, giggling madly as she twirled with the slightly shorter boy in a bear hug. "We are gonna have a blast," she said, her grin big and wide, like we just got into a merger, and she perked up, seeing herself being noticed by the duo behind the moving truck and some bystanders. "Oh hey, there he is now. Well now, talk about a small world." Edshot chuckled as the duo crossed the street. "Mount Lady and Peter Parker, I presume." "Oh, hey Edshot." Mount Lady released the American boy from her hug, standing at attention. "Looks like you're settling in fine. Need a hand over there." "Appreciate the assistance, but my movers and sidekicks are doing just fine," Edshot answered. "Pays to be the boss. Are Kamui and Death Arms in?" "They're both out on patrol at the moment. I just got back here to give our newest sidekick," she grinned ear to ear, arm wrapping around Peter, "a tour of the firm." "Hey Edshot-san." Peter waved weakly, his eyes settling back on Izuku. "And hiya Izuku." "Hey Peter." Izuku waved back. Two young potential powerhouses in our ranks." Edshot cupped his chin as he mused. "Our firm is becoming more and more mobile and stronger, it seems." Izuku turned. "Mobile? Yes. Our merger, which is codenamed Lurkers, is meant for fast response times to neutralize villains. With you and Parker here, our speed and network to cover as much ground as possible has gone up considerably. To say nothing of the punch you two will pack as well." Edshot's eye crinkled as he grinned. "This day keeps getting better and better, doesn't it?" "Damn straight," Mount Lady added. "Say, after you're done settling in, why don't we have a celebratory dinner? I can call back Kamui in arms pronto if so. I say we keep things a little more professional for now." Edshot replied. "Let's save our big meal for after we save a great deal of civilians or capture a dangerous criminal." "We'll be doing joint training stuff, right?" Mount Lady asked. "Just asking for clarification." "We will, and I will be more than happy to have my newest sidekick work alongside yours. They have experience working together after all." Mount Lady perked up, looking at Peter, who rubbed his arm as he looked away. Izuku winced. "Well, I am more intrigued than ever to see what you have developed since last we met, Midoriya," Edshot said. "I am eager to see what you two will bring to the Lurkers. If you want my opinion, it's plenty, given their experience at Island," said a voice. Izuku turned, as did everyone else. Walking towards them in a matte gray suit was a man with green hair and sharp eyes behind glasses. "Who's this guy?" Mount Lady asked. "Beats me," Peter added. "Sir Night-Eye, what are you doing out there?" Edshot asked, turning to face him. "I am in need of your services, Edshot, you and your team." He narrowed his eyes at Izuku for a moment before settling back on the ninja. "It concerns a dangerous organization, and I have the backing of the commission in doing so." "Ah yes, I've heard rumors you've been working with the HPSC on something big lately." Edshot crossed his arms. "What's this about?" "My timetable for a specific operation I am working with the Safety Commission has accelerated as of late due to factors beyond my control, and I would rather we speak about this in private with others." He held out a card. "If you will gather in Shinjuku, we will be having a prompt meeting there." "Whoa, okay, what's the deal? You can't just walk up and say, hey, I need your help. Meet at X, give us the full picture here." Mount Lady spoke out. Night-Eye turned, eyes glaring. "You will know more when the time comes should you participate. The HPSC will give substantial bonuses if you are to take part as well, so take that as an incentive, especially on such short notice." He rounded about. "I will meet you there tomorrow night at 8. Go to the address. I will see you there." And he walked away. And Izuku noticed the fancy Porsche, complete with a license plate with All Might decorated trimming. That was the Sir Night-Eye, All Might's former sidekick. "Sir Night-Eye, Midori, you're gawking," Peter mused, and Izuku perked up, blushing as his mouth slammed shut. "You know him?" "A little. He was All Might's sidekick back in the day." Peter nodded. "I see. Well now, things just got interesting." Edshot had the card in his hand. "Lady, will you inquire with Kamui Woods and Death Arms on this? I'd rather have our team be fully in the know." "You're taking up his offer?" Mount Lady inquired, reaching for her phone. "I have known Sir Night-Eye for a while. Whenever he does something, it's for a significant reason. He wants to recruit our firm for whatever he is planning with the HPSC. He can be rather curt and blunt, but he gets things done in the end. If it means getting bad people off the streets, I'm in." Peter answered. "Same," Izuku added. Edshot grinned under his mask. "So you guys in?" You talked over the phone as Peter sat in the lobby of the office. He could see framed photos of pictures and magazine covers of the heroes in question decorating the lobby of Mount Lady, Death Arms, and the headliner of the agency in Kamui Woods. He even spotted Jiru with Death Arms too. "That's great. I'll get in touch with that sourpuss and tell him we're game. We'll meet up in Shinjuku tomorrow night then," she said as she hung up. Peter turned, seeing that Yu was in costume in her Mount Lady persona. He was still in his UA school uniform, with his urban suit and his special briefcase. Alright, first day on the job and it's gonna be an Opus meetup. You surmised. I'll get you signed into the system and get you clocked in. The phone in her hand buzzed as she perked up and looked at it. Oh, she looked back to Peter. Can she do that? Who? Karen? He asked, thankful that no one else was in here. Yes, just sign me in and I will get your profile set up, along with proper billing and bank accounts filed. Karen replied in his earpiece. You looked down at her phone. Yeah, you overhearing our conversations is never not going to be creepy. She mused aloud before grinning at Peter. Come on, I even got you a little corner office next to mine. She beamed, leading the way as Peter smiled. You didn't have to do that for me, oh wait, Mount Lady. Peter corrected himself. Sorry, it's going to take time to get used to calling you by your hero name while on the clock. Still, I appreciate it big time you invited me for the work study, No problem. In fact, I'm overjoyed. I think with my size and your agility, we'll kick loads of ass. The blonde grinned ear to ear as the American rubbed the back of his head. Wish you kinda came here for the internship too. But hey, I can't turn down an offer from a top 10. You pouted. Even if it was from that cocky jerk. Peter winced. Yeah, he wasn't sure how to respond. If he had worked with you and her firm back then, there was no way he would have run into the same problems he had with Mirko. But then again, what's done was done, and he was with you now. I'm here now. Peter grinned. And we have Ed Shot looking to merge with us, so I guess I bring the top 10 wherever I go, considering how much of a stir you've caused on social media and the hero message boards. Yeah, you tend to bring something wherever you may go. You said, like when people found out you took part in the Island incident, some people were theorizing you were with Endeavor on some undercover mission. She led Peter along as a rather dour-looking and disheveled woman with bags under her eyes walked on past. She looked like she could be Aizawa's sister. You beamed. Hanako, this is Peter Parker, my ward and future sidekick for the agency. Peter, our secretary Yamanami Hanako. Good afternoon. The woman bowed respectfully as Peter did so in kind, just giving him a tour and taking him to his office. She giggled. Sidekicks get offices? Yamanami asked aloud, before settling her eyes on Peter before shrugging. Does Kamui and Dawn know about it? Yep. She led Peter along before Yamanami could respond as Peter cocked an eyebrow at his guardian. They are cool with me having an office, right? Kamui was. Arms wasn't since, rookies and stuff. But screw it, you stated as they walked along. Peter noticing as they passed by a gym next to an office. If you deserve it, you deserve it. That's what I believe. Well, thanks. Don't mention it. You added, and he noticed her office with her plaque on it and many solo magazine and article covers framed around her door. Okay, this is my office and here. She led him to another room, this one more Spartan but having a PC, desk, chair, and a table too, is yours. Now, to take you to the workshop for you to make your gadgets and gizmos aplenty. Peter perked up, grinning. Can I work in there as much as I want as a sidekick? He asked. Damn right. She winked, and Peter made a note to memorize the place as he followed you. The woman had done so much for him over the last year, adopting him, caring for him, having his back. This situation wasn't the same as when he lived with Aunt May. But if he ever had a big sister in another life, he wished it could have been you. Staring, Karen mused in his ear as he followed behind, seeing you lead the way in her costume, and his eyes traveled down to her legs and paws. Peter looked away, blushing. I'm fine, he muttered, pink on his cheeks as you looked back. Something up, Peter? Aw, just Karen asking how my office is. Don't worry, we'll spruce it up when you're settled in. You replied with pride. Soon, you'll get plenty of photos to frame and hang around it. Not like I need it, but fair I suppose. Mr. Stark had art, framed photos, and other things back at Avengers HQ the one time he went there after stopping Mr. Toombs. Maybe he could do the same in that sense. They turned the corner, and you opened the door for him. It was indeed a support lab but not as open and varied as the one at UA. No 3D printers. We don't usually use this place much. Only arms when he has to brush up and tune his gauntlet, or if any of our costumes need stitching up. You mused. But you're welcome to go wild here. If you need any stuff for your gadgets and stuff, check with me and I'll buy them for you. Thanks. Peter felt touched. The UA lab does offer a lot, so I'll try to use that place for tuning up my suit, at least until we get better stuff in here. True, you are here for a month for the work study, but hey, you may come back later on after all. You leaned against the wall as Peter walked around the lab, checking out some of the toolboxes, the computer desk, and a workbench. This could work in helping make loads of web fluid. Peter commented as he walked around. That way I won't make a mess in my room that I have to clean up. You mentioned that you used Karen to help out. You walked over, sitting on the workbench's edge. I was wondering, Maybe we can bring something to show Edshot and the others when they arrive. Can't Karen give us a full dossier so that Night Eye can't hide anything back from us? Peter lifted an eyebrow. Don't trust him, would you? She raised an eyebrow. Peter thought for a moment. Fair point there. Night Eye didn't strike him as the upfront and let's all get along type. Peter, mind closing and locking the door? Karen asked in his ear as Peter trotted over, doing just that and giving them the workshop all to themselves. Splendid. Karen spoke out of Peter's phone. I didn't even see Peter turn the phone on speaker. You said in surprise. Because you didn't have to. Karen spoke as Peter set Karen down on the bench between them. Now, to answer your question, Mount Lady. Yes, I could get in and acquire what information we need. That way we will be fully prepared for the operation. Just set me up, and I will make myself nice at home inside the hero servers. Didn't you do that before at Mirko's? Peter asked. She didn't have full access to the HPSC servers. Do you have access? You. I do, yeah. All of us do here. She muttered. Perfect. Just plug me in, and I'll get to work. Peter and you looked up and smirked. Perhaps I'll even comb over the security cameras too. I still have a backdoor into that from last time. Whoa, you can hack into security company servers. Yes, you. I can even find all the nuclear codes in America and put them on a crossword puzzle for anyone to solve. That was a joke. Your sense of humor needs serious work. You ran a hand through her hair. Noted. But yes, as long as the company is not tied to anything related to the military. As long as it serves to help Peter, I can backdoor my way into any server unseen and gain whatever information I can glean from it. All in compliance with my Ultron safeguard. Just take what information we need on what Night Eye's doing. Peter said. Anything to get bad guys off the streets can help. Will do, Peter. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Super AI. You. Peter felt himself warm up under Yu's gaze. I think this is the start of something special. Now, you go make a list of what you need down here in the workshop and you can head out shopping. She grinned as she went to the door. Tomorrow morning, we're patrolling. Can't wait to show you the best lunch spots too. I'm so excited. Me too. Peter couldn't help but share her enthusiasm. Tomorrow was going to be a loaded day. Patrolling with you, and then meeting up with Edshot and the meeting in Shinjuku for whatever that night I wanted. And you. Yeah, Pete. Thanks. Just working with you. I feel like it's gonna be great. Mount Lady, you grinned ear to ear, fist bumping him. Glad to hear it, Spider-Man. It was getting late. How long had she been down here? Power Loader was snoozing in his side office, so the Pinkette was left to her own devices. She still had her little sleepaway in the vents above if she needed to, but right now, sleep was a waste of time. Her hands were on her tools as she looked at the screen before her, guiding the robotic limbs with as much precision as she could force out of them. Clumsy things. Busy, busy, busy. Scrapped and torn up parts from the scrap shed were littered behind her. Glass found, intricately carved with a laser for the lens. She had it all set up. Zoom could only zoom in so much. Peter was right. The module was something only Island had the tech to fix, and that wasn't exactly in her list of return vacation spots. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed, she muttered, guiding the robotic hands along as the wiring was carefully inserted. If her guess was correct, she might be able to craft a telescopic device capable of zooming in at least 10 kilometers, far beyond even what her quirk could bring. If he had the Iron Spider then, he would be okay, his smile safe. She heard that the work-study program for Hero Course students had begun today. She already had a backlog of support requests to do. She decided to just shove them onto the upperclassmen. She had to fix it. Fix it. She had an entire house-sized room worth of scrap and tech to salvage, dissect, and install. Not like she was in a cave with a box of scraps. She had to fix it. I will fix it. I will fix it. Her tired yellow eyes continued to zoom in on the enhanced pixels, her mouth leaning to her straw to sip some cold coffee. Her breathing, the low beat of her heart, the whir of the computers, the AC up above, and the security of the machines were the only noises in the room. Stay awake. Don't waste time. Sleep was for the weak. Overhaul seethed, stalking through the halls of the shy Hasekai hideout, putting most of his underlings on edge. They were wary of their boss and making every effort to stay far out of arm's reach of the man. So it was up to his lieutenants, Chrono and Mimic, who fell in beside him. It was Chrono that spoke up first. Overhaul, what happened? Not now. Kai growled. Mimic, what's the status on the bullets? Where are they? Here at the hideout. When I heard word you wanted all hands on deck here, I made sure to call them in. They're on standby. The beak-masked dwarf replied. Kai turned, nodding as they got to the chamber. He barged in his Mimic and the white-robed man closed the door behind them. Overhaul fell on the couch like a sack of bricks, snarling out his next words. The heroes have Eri. His two enforcers shifted, surprised and unease in equal measure. They took a brief moment to gather their thoughts before speaking. It would be them, Chrono began. The other gangs don't even know she exists. Even so, this is unexpected. Have they been looking into us already? I thought we were keeping a low profile. We have been, Mimic declared. Middlemen, dead drops. Business has barely been able to break even. We've been staying so low to the ground. What's done is done, Kai growled, scratching his head. Veri is under the hero's watch, and with it, our only chance to bring an end to this sick hero society. Should we maybe organize a raid? Try and take her back before they take her to a secure location, Chrono suggested. Mimic nodded. She has to be at a hospital. Like, we can take that. Not in broad daylight, and not when the heroes are ready to pounce. And we don't know which hospital for now. Kai looked at his phone. I'll need to get in touch with some of my inside people, have them be on the lookout. We should start with the nearest hospital from where she was taken. Chrono spoke. Who took her anyway? Mirko, Kai hissed, ready to destroy his phone down to the last atom. Had his focus been any less sharp? Should we relocate then? Chrono asked. We may need to. Get whatever non-essentials ready to be moved if need be. But for now I'd like to avoid that, Kai replied, sending a text, sighing. The quirk killer bullet was going to give the Yakuza all the money it needed to change hero society for good in Japan. But now their main source was in enemy hands. They can get the right people in the right places, instigate a massive crime war between villain gangs and the heroes. The bullet would take heroes off the street, and with the quirk revival antidote, those things would come in high demand. To say nothing of the potential clientele in Busan, Shanghai, Harbin, Magadan, Taipei, and other places before long. And all of that was about to come to an end because he just so happened to bump into that Hafu whore. The feeling of gravity disappearing for a sliver of a moment, before it takes you and you soar through the air, will never get old. Someone's having fun, said a voice in his ear as Peter turned, seeing Ed Shot zoom by, before settling on a lamppost as Peter landed on the bar, hands and feet latched on. He turned, seeing the ninja hero stand atop of it in perfect balance. He saw a familiar green blur, Izuku leaping up from rooftop to rooftop, his black tendril latching onto the lamppost to pull himself in before landing atop of a building adjacent to Ed's shot. You two are fast, Izuku exclaimed. You'll get better with practice, Peter shrugged. You guys gotta slow down, said a voice in their earpieces as Peter turned, looking down and seeing Mount Lady jogging after them in her normal state. She transformed here and there to cover large distances to catch up, such as open streets or parks, but more cluttered locations forced her to jog at regular size. Peter rubbed the back of his head. Sorry about that. Headshot pulled out his phone, looking it over as Mount Lady panted, resting herself against the lamppost beneath them. I gotta work on my cardio, she breathed. We're in our designated patrol area. Kamui and Arms have the north part of Musutafu, and we have this branch for the day. Headshot replied as he folded and zipped to the ground, startling a few pedestrians while others clicked away on their camera phones. Peter leapt down to join him, Izuku following shortly after. Finally, now we can walk like normal people, Mount Lady mused. I guess I should have carried you along, sorry, Peter said bashfully. Meh, it's fine. If we were out in the country I bet I'd have to carry all of you on my shoulders or something, you said with a little bit of pride. Now then, let's get to work, Headshot said aloud as he walked on ahead. It's necessary for hero work to show a public image to give the civilians a peace of mind, he said, as many people continued to gawk and gape at them. Peter was beginning to feel a little used to it. At least now it's more of an exposure sort of thing. So he did what, well, any person or officer would do, and gave a wave to various onlookers and pedestrians. He even saw some girls chatting amongst themselves, giggling as Peter turned about face. Someone's getting fans, Karen's words said across his HUD. I'm aware, he muttered under his breath in English, feeling a light nudge as he turned, seeing Mount Lady smiling. So, we're all going to that meeting tonight in Shinjuku, yeah? He asked in Japanese. Better not converse too long with Karen openly as he saw you looking back at him. More than likely, me and Headshot talked about it, and I pitched it to Kamui and Arms. They're down too, she replied back as Peter nodded, going back to his phone and texting Karen. How's the investigation into Night Eye's firm going, Karen? He typed her, well enough. I am finalizing a backdoor into his servers as we speak. Logging into the Hero network made it a great deal easier, although I'll give Night Eye credit. He has good firewalls. I'll keep you posted and will update you once I've hacked them and can compile a complete document for all of you. Suddenly, the group was on alert as they heard police sirens. Look alive, people. Headshot folded and blasted off, and Izuku glowed green and leapt to the rooftops, the black tendrils pulling him towards it as Peter leapt after them. What's going on? Izuku asked. Robbery. We can still intercept the thieves, Edshot answered, his body reforming from its folded form mid-leap. Where at? Peter asked as he jumped and ran beside Izuku, keeping pace atop the building. He can hear quakes beside him, Mount Lady in a jog. 10 blocks due south. Try and catch up if you can. Edshot then took off in a crack. Hey Spider-Man, said a louder voice as Peter felt shade, looking up as he saw the grinning form of a giant Mount Lady. She offered a hand, with Peter leaping from the building to her outstretched palm. The American turned about, seeing smoke rising up from a business district. Too small for a building on fire, that must be the bank. Need a lift? That's 10 blocks away, Peter exclaimed as he saw Mount Lady rear her arm back with him in it as he blinked. You. Don't worry about what? And you through him launched her arm, following through like she was tossing a fastball, sending Peter soaring through the air. Kirishima would likely say his scream was very unmanly. Peter would be inclined to agree if he had screamed, which he absolutely hadn't, and anyone who said otherwise was a lying liar who lies. Flying over the buildings, his spider sense screamed as he arched and twisted through the air. He saw what looked like several armored trucks and armored men hauling things into them. He fired his web shooters, stabilizing as he used momentum to swing around a statue to quickly change his trajectory and veer right towards the trucks the guys were still trying to finish loading. Danway, he yelled, bashing against one and knocking off its wheels as he crushed the whole front end into the asphalt. Peter heard shouts of surprise and shock and got back up. Wish up, guys. Making a deposit? He asked, seeing the masked men turn and face him, eyes wide with shock and surprise. He heard shouts inside the bank, a blur of barely their movement out of the corner of his eye before it was gone again. Edshot. Had to be. Kill him. The men in front of him raised their guns, and Peter felt right at home as he jumped and web slinged away as he twirled over the gunfire, firing web bolts at them as he did so. He heard a crack of glass somewhere, but it didn't matter as he charged in, knocking out masked goons left and right with strong right and left hooks. Night. One blow, one takedown. Take a nap. Once more. Oh man, this is too easy, fellas. And a kick to one of them, who fell like a stringless puppet. A web shot and a yank sent another face first into the pavement. Seeing their allies getting creamed made them retreat back into the bank, as Peter felt his sense tingle. He turned, seeing a large bulging man made of metal. I'm gonna crush you, bug, he bellowed, lifting an armored truck over his head. Peter saw a flash of green out of the corner of his eye. Black tendrils lashed out, catching the giant metal man in the eyes, wrapping around him as he let out a yell. With it, the villain stumbled around and Izuku landed and leaped up, twirling as he lashed his leg out in a kick, catching the goon right in the chest as he was sent flying, the armored truck falling atop him. Peter saw his hands twitch before going limp. Is he okay? I mean, he's made of metal and all, but Izuku murmured while Peter shrugged. He'll live. If he can lift it over his head, no problem. He can handle it on his chest. He heard yelling inside and turned, seeing more masked goons flying out of the glass windows as if they were being flung out like rags. An Edshot appeared, folding out of thin air. Seems like the front has been handled, he said, seeing the unconscious and webbed up robbers. How are the civilians inside? Peter asked. They're all fine, don't worry him. The man paused, and in his sudden silence, Peter heard it too. They turned, seeing a chopper lift off from the top of the bank. Eat shit and suck dick, heroes, one raccoon-looking individual said as he gave them the bird. Izuku's hands became smothered in darkness as he aimed, Peter ready to aim also. The white web and dark tendrils lashed out as one from their right hands, going to the top of the building as Izuku's body glowed and Peter tensed. They launched, wind passing and the ground cracking under the two's jump over edge shot as the ninja smiled. Ha, kids, he mused, before cracking and zipping along the roof and up to the helicopter itself. The duo landed at the edge of the building and used it to propel themselves upwards. Web and tendril flew from their left arms. Catching the chopper, they became anchors, rooting the helicopter from taking off. Gah, let us go, Raccoon Guy cursed, turning to the pilot. Fly harder, he yelled, and Peter groaned as he felt the tension of his webs growing. With a whip-like crack, edge shot appeared in the helicopter. The villains screamed in sudden surprise before the hero punched, kicked, and beat the villains about the interior cabin, tossing two of them out of the swaying vehicle. Peter cut his webs, firing off web pellets to catch one villain mid-fall, as Izuku caught the other with his dark whip. Edshot struggled with the pilot, the chopper beginning to spin in a rapidly uncontrolled tumble as two gunshots with twin flashes rang out from the cockpit. Gotcha, Mount Lady shouted as she jumped up. Like a player catching a ball, her hand grabbed hold of the spinning chopper in her palm. The rotor blades crashed into her fingers, twisting and bending like cheap paper clips. Edgeshot stumbled on the interior, and so did the pilot. The ninja hero acted quickly, grabbing the pilot's head and slamming him into the bulkhead, knocking the man out. You lifted the chopper over her head, reaching to place it onto the helipad with its ruined rotor blades. The thing wasn't going anywhere. Edgeshot stepped out, dusting himself off. Note to self, Peter heard him mutter. Flying lessons. Edgeshot, thank you for coming. The police sergeant exclaimed. The 10-ton Tanuki gang came out of nowhere. Peter had to hold back a laugh. 10-ton Tanuki gang. Seriously, not a problem, officer. He nodded. Process them as you see fit, right? And the officers came up, taking the masked robbers and taking them to their vehicles. One pair of policemen were busy cutting into the webbing. Gah, what gives with this? One of them muttered, a round-faced man with a mustache similar to the hands of a clock. You there? Did you web these villains up? He asked, his eyes on Peter. Yeah, just use something hot, it'll melt off. Peter waved lightly. Works almost too good. They muttered as they got out razor blades to cut through the goop. You two did well, Edgeshot said, walking forth as he appraised the two. You've both grown quite a bit since your internships, haven't you? Peter grinned, looking to the side and smiling towards Izuku, the boy returning it in kind. Go team, Mount Lady beamed, giving a thumbs up as she was still in her giant form. He saw Izuku blushing deeply and looking up, lips puckered. What's that foe? Oh no. He turned around and saw Mount Lady bending down very slowly. Nice shot, money shot, muttered journalists behind the police cars as they were taking photos of Yu's ass as the woman seemed to be reveling in it. Mount Lady waved, blowing a kiss before looking to the side. Hee gonna show Midnight who's the hottest single heroine in the charts. Mount Lady. Peter yelled. Really? Come on. He shouted, hands on his head. It's okay, Spidey. You called out. Just updating my magazine portfolio, she said with a cute pose. All work no play make Johnny a dull boy and all. Ain't that like an American catchphrase? Peter took a deep breath, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I'm going to talk to the police chief. Deku, come with me. Spider-Man, keep Mount Lady company, will you? Edgeshot patted Peter on the shoulder as Izuku walked past, gazing longingly at Mount Lady as the blonde continued to pose and blow kisses. He kept on staring. And staring. You have her magazine covers in your bedroom, don't you? Peter dryly asked, and Izuku froze up as he looked back awkwardly. I research her quirk and read up on her articles a lot, so that's code for yes, isn't it? Oh, Edgeshot is looking at me. Be right back. And Izuku trotted past. Guess Izuku isn't as innocent as I thought. Peter muttered quietly while debating whether to use his webbing to gum up a few of the more overeager photographers. He's a growing teenage boy, Peter, can you blame him? Karen replied, and Peter looked up at her. Yeah, he can see why. Still makes it weird and oddly nostalgic. Shoto looked back behind him. Sticking out of his glacier, a runaway ice struck was present as the back door flew open. The thieves inside scampering from the sheer cold as they landed on the ground. It's over. Turn yourselves in. The dual-haired boy glowered as one of the thugs, a man with a bandana around his head, snarled. Not on your life, punk. He lashed his arms out, his hands morphing into vacuum suction hoses and firing at full power. I'm gonna cleave ya, his fatter compatriot bellowed as he reared back his arm. He was a massive and obese crocodile man with his arm morphing into a chainsaw. Shoto felt himself being pulled in. Scoffing, he shifted his foot, ice spearing out to box the criminals in before he thrust his hand forward, fire leaping from his palm towards the trapped villains. He heard them scream in pain. Another shift of his foot and the two who had fallen on their hands and knees to try and duck under the flames suddenly had their limbs encased in ice. They weren't going anywhere. Well done, Endeavor toned as Shoto turned around, the number 2 hero floating down with his arms crossed around his chest. Seems you caught the second group of robbers from the bank by yourself. You followed me, Shoto mused rhetorically as he looked behind Endeavor, seeing the giant swath of ice surges he made to catch up to the armored truck. Wasn't hard to follow, even with your GPS, the red-haired man replied. I handled the first group and am handing them to the authorities. He narrowed his eyes at the shivering bandits, Shoto following his gaze. They looked like they've been singed, doused and frozen all over as their teeth chattered, the fat crocodile man looking out of it. Likely due to being cold-blooded thanks to his quirk. Have a problem? Far from it. You've come a long way, Shoto, Endeavor praised. Now then, I believe you need to melt down the glacier and ice you made. Right? Meet you back at the firm? He asked, seeing police cars drive up on the scene to apprehend the villains. With Endeavor here, the duo wouldn't put up much of a fuss as Shoto saw them approach. No, meet me at Silver Lake. Shoto perked up. the new ramen place in downtown Shibuya. From what he checked on nearby ramen shops, that place had cold soba on the menu. It's close by, and we've been out and about all day. Endeavor turned. Let's get some food. Okay then, Shoto mused. Why, is it suddenly a crime to go and eat with my son and sidekick? Endeavor asked, and Shoto rolled his eyes and sighed. It's not. Besides, they have what you like anyway. The older man paused as he saw the patrol officer approach with some deputies, cuffs in hand to apprehend the robbers. Should I talk to him? Report on what happened. It'll be good practice. Endeavor stepped aside, letting Shoto see the policeman approach. Endeavor, a squeaky-sounding voice spoke out as Shoto turned, as did the number 2 hero as a man approached from a parked car. He had the head of a centipede, with the main body surrounding his neck like a scarf as his mandibles moved and clicked. I would like a word. And who are you? He asked, eyebrow raised as the centipede man offered his card. Hello, are you the young hero who stopped those 2 robbers from Shibuya Credit Bank? The patrol officer, a stocky and rotund man, asked as Shoto focused on him. The centipede man and Endeavor walked off to the side, no doubt talking. He can get filled in later. For now, better give the authorities the rundown. And I wish we could get some action up in here, Kirishima groaned as Momo walked side by side with the redhead boy. Don't worry about it, Red Riot. The tall, round and jolly Fatgum replied as he marched along munching on some pocky. The towering fat hero wore his trademark sweater with countless pockets for various tools, and necessary heavy-calorie snacks custom made for the BMI hero's design. When you're a hero, you'll always get a piece of the action. But he paused as he swallowed a whole packet's worth of the chocolate-covered pastry sticks before reaching into one of his many pockets, grabbing a chip bag. Doesn't hurt to have downtime in between. Calms down the nerves, you know. He turned around, beaming as he opened his bag as their 4th companion was trailing behind. Ain't that right, Sonny? Why yeah, see, calm down. Peace and quiet ... Got it, sir. Amajiki Tamaki, also known as Sun Eater, replied, the hooded boy looking so desperate in trying to find some hole to hide in. To think that was one of the big 3 in UA that aided them in their finals. You know, Kirishima leaned in and whispered towards Momo. For someone who has been sidekicking for a while, Amajiki-senpai is a bit, what's a word I'd use for like, super shy, introverted or something? He wondered as Momo blinked. Well, shy would be the appropriate term. Introverted is more or less not liking other people from what I recall. Momo whispered back, but Amajiki has given us some wisdom. Everyone has their own pace and traits to them. What you mumblin' bout? Fatgum asked with a full mouth of chips. Just you know, Kirishima laughed, Momo blushing at being caught gossiping. All war stories me and my classmates used to have. That's right, you guys were in quite a few situations. Amajiki said. Seems like he can talk a bit normally when the subject doesn't involve himself. There was the USJ incident, and then there was class of students who were involved in the I-Island incident. Momo winced, holding her arm and looking to the side a little. Yeah, all might resolve both of them in the end. Fatgum swallowed what's left of his chips, stowing the wrapper as he turned and waved at some civilians who were taking videos with their phones. But, from what I hear on the boards and among my peers, you kids did an outstanding job, considering everything. But now isn't the time for that, he said, offering a big smile. Right now we gotta focus on the job, and that, he turned, seeing an old lady using a walker to traverse a crosswalk, is to be good Samaritans to all fair citizens. He trotted up to her side and guided her along. Here you go, ma'am. Need a hand? Oh, why thank you, Mr. Hero. The old lady with screws for eyes turned, smiling up with a toothless grin. Such a capable and big strong man. I bet the ladies are going wild over you these days, she murmured. Fatgum just grinned widely. Aw shucks, you flatter me, ma'am. Kirishima sighed. Still, wish we could at least get some action around here, he muttered. If there is no action, it means we're doing our jobs, Momo replied, the redhead turning towards her. Our presence here in public is to act as a deterrent for villains and criminals after all, and gives the public peace of mind, she said as she looked about, seeing people looking their way, smiling every now and then. All right, back on patrol, guys. And Red, Creaty's got the right of it. No news being good news, but, as the old saying goes, when in peace, prepare for war and vice versa. He turned towards the black-haired girl. Isn't that how the saying goes? Something to that effect? Yes, Momo replied. Man, the guy who made that quote must have been all sage-like and stuff. Then his face lit up, and he licked his chops. Sage. Maybe when I get home I should try that seasoning on some roast duck. Oh, or maybe on mashed potatoes, Fatgum said, turning around and walking down the sidewalk as the 3 teens followed. And there he goes about food. Amajiki mused. He's going to go on for a while, isn't he? Momo inquired, though sage on roast duck did sound quite appetizing. Yep, wait, sage is a seasoning. Kirishima asked. Isn't sage like a big wizard or monk guy? It's a flower of sorts, from what I recall. Momo replied as she smiled softly looking ahead. She gave a soft smile, looking ahead. Yes, this was what she wanted to do. To save lives, to help others. Come what may, she will create whatever is necessary to help those in need. And for today, what she is creating for these people is just an image. And that image will bring a peace of mind to everyone. Just being there counts, even despite all her intelligence it seems. I still have more to learn as a hero. She mused to herself aloud, walking along as she turned, Kirishima looking at her. Wow, everyone here is sounding so wise and cool. Even Yaoyorozu says she needs to learn more. Kirishima muttered, and Momo blinked. I wanna be like that. But manly too, he said with a punched fist in the air. It's creaty, we're on the job. Momo corrected, and Kirishima blanched. Sorry, creaty. And the BMI hero let out a jolly old laugh. Don't you worry, Red. Fatgum grinned. You'll get there. Just takes experience. Oh. The busty brunette saw the reason why. A child with radio antenna sticking out of his crown had bumped into him. Oh, I'm so sorry. A taller woman approached, kneeling down by the boy. My son was trotting on ahead and... like candy, the boy muttered, and true enough, a half-eating lollipop was now in the gutter. Aw man, I know the feeling, lil guy. Fatgum laughed it off. Don't worry, I got just the thing for the occasion. He reached into one of his pockets, pulling out a bigger and wrapped lollipop as the boy beamed like a Christmas tree. Thank you, the boy exclaimed, taking it as the mother chuckled. Come along now, Kanta-kun. We need to find a nice gift for your papa overseas. She nodded to Fatgum as he smiled and waved as she led her son along. The boy tearing off the wrapper and licking up the candy. Okay, now then, we're almost to Hydra Nation's area, so we can circle around and head back. Fatgum turned about and he perked up. Oh, hey a Night-Eye, he jovially exclaimed as all three teens turned. Night-Eye. True enough, a man with dark green hair with gold stripes and a plain gray suit was approaching with a stern look upon his features. Fatgum, good afternoon. On patrol? He asked. Under his arm was a bag, with it labeled Hero Hot Topic braised on the side. Momo quirked an eyebrow. What would this rather serious-looking salaryman be doing there? You bet. Got new sidekicks with me too on a work study. The man had his hands on his hips. What's up? I figured you would be busy cracking some kind of super special case than out and about. What are you doing around here? You're usually the type to do serious video calls or phone calls. I was in the area for a personal errand. That said, this is an opportunity to talk in person. I am in need of your services, and the cooperation of your sidekicks as well. Night-Eye replied, pulling out a card from his chest as he held his bag low, and Momo was able to catch a glimpse of some kind of fluffy, red, blue and white blanket. You will be rightfully compensated by the Safety Commission. He handed it to the taller man. All of you would. Well now, guess we're being called upon for a big-time operation. Fatgum grinned. So, you guys down for some legit government work? Knowing Night-Eye, there's some villains that need a taking down. Kirishima grinned ear to ear, punching an open palm of his own. Oh, trust me, I've been dying for this. I will do what needs to be done to help others. Amajiki replied, as Momo nodded. You can count on us, sir, she said. Fatgum beamed, grinning. Well, you can count us in. He looked down at the card, Night-Eye staring back like a statue. So, where we meetin' up at? Oh wow, is that an all-might blanket? Kirishima exclaimed, suddenly interrupting. The group froze. Night-Eye turned and looked Kirishima dead in the eye. Yes, his voice was utterly and completely flat. He adjusted his glasses. It's handcrafted. So, can we see her? Rumi asked, still in her hero costume, as she stood beside Shizune in the hospital lobby. Of course, she has been asking for you, the nurse said. She's on the 5th floor, room 534. Thanks. Rumi turned down towards the elevator, beginning to walk towards it before she spoke to her assistant. Thanks for coming by on this too. I could use a bit of help. In what? The girl with the raccoon tail asked as they got inside, and it was the two of them alone as they began their slow ascent. Talking to kids, Rumi replied. You grew up in a big family, right? Middle child of 7 kids, yay. So yeah, you'll probably be better at this than me. This is the first time I've seen you be worried over someone in a while. Shizune replied with crossed arms, smirking lightly. Thankfully, the elevator came to their stop and they departed, walking down the hall to find room 534 as they walked past doctors, patients, and nurses. But yeah, to answer your question, Mirko, she said, looking up to the white-haired woman. Just be nice and well, polite. Patient too. So, kind of everything you're not in some ways. Oh fuck off. Rumi smirked as they approached the door. Room 534 which had some men in suits in front of it. Oi, she remarked, eyes narrowed as they turned. Who the fuck are all of you here? Ah, Mirko-san, one of the men said. We're with the HPSC on orders from Sir Night-Eye to keep watch. The suit replied as Mirko crossed her arms over her chest. That right, huh? Suddenly your boss gives a shit. Mirko, Shizune remarked, trying to urge the white-haired woman not to start anything. That aside, Suit 2 stepped aside. The young lady has been asking for you specifically. Mirko snorted, marching past the man and taking a look at his ID number. She'd check it the second she had a free moment to do so. Opening the door, she recognized, distantly, that she hasn't been inside hospitals in a long while. Ever since she turned pro actually. As soon as she walked in, he returned, perking up when she caught sight of her. Rumi saw her, getting out of the wide bed and trotting over. She was cleaned up, new bandages along her arms and legs, and had a floral gown as she hugged the rabbit-eared woman's muscular legs. Hey, a girl, Rumi said, beaming with a smile as she pet the kid on the head. You been doing okay? She asked as she walked with the child deeper into her room. She can hear Shizune walk on inside as she looked down, noticing Eri perk up at the sound of another person walking in. Hi Eri-chan, Shizune murmured, and the girl seemed to shrink, hiding behind Mirko's legs, looking like a nervous puppy. It's okay, I'm a friend of Mirko's here. The girl said nothing, looking up to Mirko who smiled back, her red eyes soft and comforting. Yeah, Shizune here has been friends with me for years. You can trust her like you do me, okay kiddo. Okay. The white-haired girl murmured softly. The tanuki-eared and tailed woman chuckled, smiling warmly up at Mirko. So, what you been doing the last day or so? She asked, seeing the TV playing some kids' cartoons. Seems Doraemon is up in space this time around. Longest-running TV show of all time, that Doraemon. Just, doctors visiting. They're nicer than the other ones, Eri replied as Shizune's ears perked up. She seemed to be frowning still. You mean, the ones you had with that bad man? Mirko asked. Eri ducked her head. It was all the answer she needed. Rumi placed a hand atop Eri's much smaller one, grasping it softly. Hey, Eri, look at me, she said softly but firmly as the girl looked up, red eyes looking into red eyes. That guy overhaul isn't going to do a thing to me. And trust me, if he did, she put a thumb against her chest. I'll be the first one to kick his ass. She paused, seeing the cross look on Shizune's face. All over the place. She salvaged it. He and the men with him won't ever bother you again. You promise? Eri asked, eyes full of hope. And Rumi couldn't help but smile back, feeling Eri's hand grasp onto hers. Promise kiddo. So, enough of that, wanna watch some TV together? Or draw something? Rumi asked. Can we draw a little before the doctors come back? Eri asked sullenly. They said they wanna put me through an MRI. Is it safe? She said nervously. They're as safe as can be, Eri-chan. Shizune replied warmly. It was getting late when Izuku arrived at Shinjuku, exiting the car in his Deku costume as he gazed up and out. Being back in the heart of Tokyo, the center of one of the busiest cities in the world, made the boy look in awe. Even seeing blimps carrying All Might's face as he was advertising some kind of hair gel product. This takes me back, Peter mused, walking beside him in his Spider-Man attire as the green-haired boy turned. You've been here before. Yeah, you know, Peter shrugged, looking to the side as Izuku winced, understanding. He looked back, seeing Mount Lady, Edshot, Death Arms, and Kamui Woods leave the car as Edshot gave the keys to the valet. Before them, the twin towering Tokyo Metropolitan Government building loomed large. I don't see why I had to sit in the very back. Arms grumbled under his breath. Oh, relax, big guy, you'll be fine. We didn't spend a lot of money for that big van anyway. Mount Lady replied with a little elbow to her taller co-worker. Come on, let's head inside. They walked along, through the business entrance, seeing several other employees of the building look their way. They entered the lobby of the Metropolitan and saw a blue-skinned girl in white attire perk up. Oh, Larker's agency, she asked, trotting up to them and smiling. I'm Bubble Girl, Sir Night-Eye's psychic. The meeting information is on this card, she exclaimed, handing Edshot a card. He looked down at it, Izuku and Peter falling beside him to inspect it. All right, let's go. He led the way, the boys following behind them with Mount Lady, Kamui and Arms. Why the secrecy? Death Arms mused. Must be a big operation. Kamui added. Lady and Peter were quiet as they followed along, heading into an elevator and Edshot pressing on a button. The ride was quiet save for the pleasant music inside. The elevator came to a stop and they all departed, turning down the hallway and towards a conference room as they stepped inside. It was a bit large, with a large oval-shaped table and plenty of chairs. There were many other heroes gathered already. Yo Midoriya, Ace, said a voice as Izuku perked up, and Kirishima was trotting towards them, with Momo walking from the rear. Looks like you two got recruited too, huh? Sup Kirishima, Peter replied, fist bumping him. Heya Momo. Peter-san, Momo greeted lightly, smiling slightly in turn. Small world, added another voice, and Izuku turned, and it was Shoto who was walking towards them. Let me guess, Night Eye or one of his guys came to you? Kirishima asked, glancing Shoto's way. The old man got approached by Night Eye's sidekick. Shoto shrugged as Izuku looked behind Shoto, seeing Endeavor standing off to the side, not bothering to socialize as he noticed Fatgum and Edgeshot talking. The green-haired boy perked up. There were so many heroes here. The number 2 hero Endeavor, the BMI hero Fatgum, the lock hero Ro. Izuku felt an elbow nudge him gently to the side, and Peter was lightly smirking with a quirked eyebrow. Shoto stood as deadpan as usual, with Momo looking amused and Kirishima blinking. Mumbles. Izuku blushed deeply, looking to the side. Mumbles. Peter chuckled good-naturedly. Still, seems like Night Eye isn't gathering all of us here just to have a potluck. Hey, potluck? Shoto asked, looking visibly confused. Oh, it's... The door opened, revealing 3 new heroes. The first was Night Eye, All Might's former sidekick, pushing up his glasses as he took a spot at the end of the table. Walking by him, Aizawa Shoto was present too. He turned towards the group, giving the barest of nods when Kirishima waved before focusing on the group ahead. And behind him was someone that made Peter stiffen slightly. Mirko walked in. Of all the people, Peter felt a knot grow in his stomach that was tightening as Mirko's ears folded lightly. So that's Mirko in person, huh? Man, she's got more manly thighs than some gym guys I know of. Kirishima murmured. She must be super strong. Kirishima-kun, Momo spoke. Never say that again, please. What? I was complimenting her. The redhead defended himself, and Momo's palm smacked solidly over her forehead. Now then, it seems that a majority of the people have arrived, Night Eye stated as he walked to the front. Mirko meanwhile planted herself on a chair, very obviously not looking at him. You stared hard at her, however, making Peter nudged her. It's fine, he half whispered, half pleaded. But still, why the hell was Mirko here? Her whole deal was hating teammates. Thank you all for coming, Night Eye began. Now then, I'll cut to the chase. I've gathered you all here for a special operation to take place during the coming week. The Yakuza have an organization called the Shai Hasekai, led by the villain known as Overhaul, that are known for trafficking in drugs and various contraband. He explained they have recently been tied to the creation of a drug that is known to nullify quirks in the form of a bullet. The slide behind him changed, displaying a small red bullet with a tiny needle inside. These have not been widespread in the black market, but they are slowly growing. Thus, we need to nip this problem in the bud, because if this spreads, it could result in a villain resurgence unlike anything we have seen. How have they been distributing this weapon? Endeavor asked. I have been in touch with many underworld sectors, but I've come up with very little concrete information beyond rumor. They have been keeping it very low, off the net, likely via word of mouth. Gangsters knowing gangsters and knowing lower-ranked thugs, Aizawa added. A fair assessment, Eraserhead, Night Eye surmised. Thanks to recent developments, the Hasekai have hit a little snag in the production of this drug-laced bullet, which we have dubbed the Quirk Killer. He tapped on the next slide. At this moment in time, they are vulnerable, weakened, and due to said developments, we are going to take the fight to them to neutralize this threat before it can grow beyond our ability to contest. So we're gonna take part in a raid, huh? What's the specifics? Fatgum asked. You'll be divided into teams, Night Eye said as the next slide appeared. The Hasekai have countless branches across the country, but those are storehouses and way stations for their little underground railroad. Thus, the slide displayed as Assault Team, with various heroes' pictures directly under the label. Peter noticed a few familiar faces, like those older kids that helped them on the exam. Tagata, Amajiki, and Hado. This will be the main force assaulting the main headquarters of the Hasekai. They have a compound based in the suburbs of the Gianoshi ward. Night Eye elaborated. With cooperation from law enforcement, we will storm their compound, arresting and apprehending anyone who resists, until the last Yakuza organization in Japan has been brought to heel. Peter took note of the assault team. Night Eye, the older trio, Endeavor, Fatgum, Rocklock, and others. But still, why the hell was Mirko here? Her whole deal was hating teammates and being a solo lone wolf, and here she was taking part in an operation that demanded teamwork at every level. Peter rubbed his head through his mask. The raid on the base in question will be led by Endeavor and his agency in conjunction with Eraserhead and Edgeshot. Given both of their experience in handling sting raids of this magnitude, they will be backed up by the agencies of Fatgum and Rocklock. I also have word that the Ryuku agency will be assisting as well. She was unable to make it today due to a crucial mission in Hokkaido, but is wrapping it up today. Night Eye adjusted his glasses. Mount Lady will be providing immediate backup in conjunction with her colleagues Kamui Woods and Death Arms. In case anyone escapes, you will be the last line. You can leave it to us, Kamui Woods said on the spot. Arms nodding while Mount Lady looked at the screen and understood her role. Peter saw movement out of the corner of his eye, seeing Momo raise her hand. Yes, Night Eye asked, hands behind him. Sir, I'm wondering, you stated the roles for most of the pro heroes here. I am curious as to what our roles will be. That should be obvious, kid, Rocklock cut in, the dark-skinned man giving her a scowl. You really think we'd send teenagers to the front lines of a hero raid on a dangerous villain group hideout underground? Use some of that common sense here. She was only asking a question, dude. Peter contested, angry at the jab towards her. No, it's a fair one. Mirko cut in, glaring daggers. Gotta know where some people are, right? She asked. Peter hoped his mask hid his cringe. Lay off, why don't you? You bit back, and the bronze-skinned woman blinked. I'm sorry, who the fuck are you again? She asked in the most bored matter-of-fact fashion. You glared right back. Mount Lady, you ass. Enough, both of you. Endeavor cut in. Mirko looking at him with one eye while you glared at him. We're here to discuss a dangerous assignment to remove criminals from our streets, not fight like children. Sure thing, Silver Metal Sam. Mirko drawled, and Endeavor glared daggers into her, the temperature rising as Shoto sighed. May I continue? Night Eye said, tone clipped and sharp as Peter can feel his eyes bore into each and every one of them. Thank you. Now, as to answer Creati's query, the sidekicks involved will be taking part in a less dangerous, but by no means less important assignment. The provisional heroes SpiderMan, Deku, Creati, Red Riot, and Shoto will be tasked in protecting what we are dubbing the asset, and they will do so under the watchful eyes of Mirko. The fuck? Something up, Mirko. Rocklock turned, the tanned woman looking surprised and angry as she looked at Night Eye, and Peter felt his insides lock up and freeze. She wouldn't blurt it out here, would she? Just, YR. Her eyes looked to Peter instantly, and sighed, clenching the bridge of her nose before glaring back to Night Eye. Kids being involved with this. Goddammit. Peter sat back in his seat, looking at the ceiling, wishing anyone else was in her seat instead. Would you prefer them to sit and do nothing? Night Eye inquired. Honestly, yes, she ground out, throwing a sideways glare to Peter. He felt Mount Eladai's hand under the table clasp on his own, and he can see the death glare she was throwing at the rabbit hero as he squeezed back. These kids, spoke a voice as Peter turned, seeing Edshot sitting calm and composed, while Izuku sat with a worried glance, have been in more dangerous situations than most of us when we were their age, both in school and out. Their track record, barring very few instances, has proven their reliability. The ninja answered her easily. Mirko's ears folded back, burning holes in the ninja with her eyes. Edshot didn't even blink. My son will be more than capable in guarding whatever this asset may be. Endeavor spoke, arms crossed, as would Yoraimush's disciple. Peter can see Momo perk up, eyebrows raised, and Red's as tough as they come. Fatgum added. Mirko. Night Eye looked over to the two heroes, the dark-skinned woman perking up. I know you prefer working alone, but can I trust you can bear working with UAS best up-and-comers for the course of a half a day? There was silence as she sat back in her chair, crossing her arms. TCH, whatever. Mirko huffed. I am a bit curious though, why is someone of Mirko's capabilities doing on defense instead of offense? Edshot asked. His tone was genuinely curious more than anything else. Because she has experience with the asset. Night Eye answered, seemingly content with the rather vague explanation. Where is the raid taking place, and where are we defending? Mirko asked. Depending on what goes down, I could cross-country hop fast. We have tracked the Hasekai's main headquarters in Geonoshi Ward, as explained earlier. Night Eye explained. The asset will be transferred to Kawasaki, to the south near the coast. We have a safe house there at Kawasaki Kyoto Hospital and it's well defended. It will also fool the Hasekai into thinking they are around Tokyo. Mirko paused, thinking long and hard as Peter saw a map come up in his HUD. It's 16 miles from each other. That'll work, I guess. Mirko mused. If you need help back up in Geonoshi, I can hop over there in 10 minutes. She had a sideways glance at Night Eye, however. Very well. We will reconvene tomorrow. The sidekicks will fall under Mirko's command. Endeavor, you and I will work closely for the main assault team. Understood. The red-haired hero replied. Night Eye nodded. We're adjourned. Soon all the heroes got up from their seats, Peter seeing Mirko depart. Come on, Pete, you whispered. You coordinate with your friends. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't bother with her. She wants to act like a lone wolf. Let her. She uttered under her breath. Swear to God I will fucking punt her ass to Guam. she bit out through gritted teeth. I mean it, she whispered back. You had good reason doing what you did back then. Still messed up, Peter uttered, sighing. Went about it all wrong then. After she was being an utter coup. Can we talk about this later please? Peter interrupted her, pleading with the giantess hero, and the blonde woman sighed, smiling as she squeezed Peter's shoulder. You're too nice for your own good, you know that. She mused with a soft smile. Why the hell are you stuck working with her again? We'll know more tomorrow, Peter whispered, as will you on that last one. Talking more on his mistakes. Just another tally to why he has become such a screw-up. I guess she patted his back. Meet you and Deku by the car. Sounds good. He saw her walk towards Edgeshot. He saw Izuku and nodded, and the two walked down the hallway and towards the lobby. I'm gonna set up a group chat with Karen and our group, Peter whispered, and true enough, he can see a text window. Alright then boys and girls. Anyone excited for the upcoming mission? Karen asked, and Peter saw Izuku look to his phone. You bet I am, Kirishima wrote. Although I wish we could catch some of the action though. That would be implying the villains would know where the asset is. Shoto replied. Let's hope for the best and pray for the worst. Momo added. KK Kirishima. Oh, we will need a team name. Of course. Momo. Got it. Shoto. Sure thing, Izuku said from the side as they waited by the car. So, first official hero mission as sidekicks, and we're on guard duty in the rear. Peter shrugged. Could be worse. Izuku smiled. They could have told us we weren't involved at all. Peter huffed out a laugh. Most people would have seen that as good not worse. Guess a bit of crazy comes with the job. Despite how the years flowed, even an immortal felt every single second pass as time rolled on. With age came patience, but even for one that had seen world orders come and go, the drag got to all minds. The tick of the clock, the feeling of knowing with a dozen different senses that things were fading faster than they could be replenished brought everything to stark clarity. The fragility of life, it came even to him, a demon lord. He knew that it would, some part of him at least. It was a planned outcome. One of the first that he invented after his brother went away with One for All. For everything to come crumbling down just because the head of the snake was cut off. That wouldn't do, it couldn't. The festering evil, the hatred of the world and its societies, it required enough foresight to foster and develop even in the lightest of days. One came from his successor, another, his organization, and the last came from his legacy. The one that pulled the strings, that made the choices, that shifted the world from the shadows. It was his right and his burden, as the true leader of the League, to make sure everything was set. Even now, he observed the good doctor's work through senses beyond sight. The new high-ends were coming in nicely. Tamura had attracted a great many villains, and through them, taking the drudges of society, and putting them to good use. Their quirks were perfect for the evolution of their greatest soldiers. It had been quite some time since the doctor was so excited to work with a new batch of quirks. His elation was almost infectious as All for One kept a near constant grin on his face as he heard the reports. And his successor's plans. And then, I'll take the Namu and smash them into the ground. A brilliant strategy, All for One commented. He listened to the different ways that his successor would destroy those that would oppose him for the last half hour at this point. A wonderfully delightful conversation. Every second, the hatred in young Tamura grew, and the copy of his namesake within him grew too. It was almost perfect. The madness, the need to destroy and crack, it reminded All for One of himself in his younger years. But you must wait, All for One continued. If you simply destroy them in one blow, the rest will scatter, and they will know what you can do. You must play your hand correctly, each choice leading your enemies to the perfect moment where you can finally annihilate them. The groan came through the receiver. But that's what you always say. Waiting and more waiting. When is anything going to happen? Soon, more than likely. But there would need to be something that sated the boy, something to continue his lust for revenge and his desire for destruction. In time, everything will come to you if you simply let it. All for One said slowly. Watch the way the underworld moves, and how the heroes that we fight against respond to it. One more groan came through. Back to the NPCs and posers. Why waste time on those losers? Because despite being NPCs, they will be the citizens in your army, All for One explained. The cattle for you to move and pieces for you to position as you would any of your actual player characters. Numbers is a power in and of itself. He leaned back in his chair, letting the grin come through even as more pieces behind him split and broke on themselves to create new and better pieces. So watch with me, Tamura, and as you watch, you will see your chance. And those who wronged you will fall by your hand. Fine. Would you look at that? You could teach a mad dog tricks. You simply dangle the right bait before him. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 23. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.